to overtime. Dwayne Wade right at the body of Anderson Varejao. Welcome to your Kodak moment, Anderson Varejao. Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 3OT. We're doing another mock draft because we are done with another round of the playoffs. And you guys loved the last one, so we thought we'd do it again. You know, I'm here with the MVP of last week, the one and only Sam Clark. Sam, say hello to the people at home.
Hello to the people at home.
Yeah, we got to bring that joke back. Yeah, we're going to do another mock draft. Instead of last time where Sam had the odds and I had the evens, I'm going to have the odds. Sam is going to have the evens. And yeah, you'll never guess who I'm starting out the draft with. We really don't need to keep going into this. Trevor Lawrence to
Mac
the
Jones.
Yeah. Oh my God. It hurts. It physically hurts. Yeah. I'm taking Kyle Pitts first overall because the Jaguars really need a tight end. No, it's Trevor Lawrence. It's always been Trevor Lawrence. It's always going to be Trevor Lawrence. Did we have the official Urban Meyer hire last week or?
No, that just became official like 3 days ago or 4 days ago.
Well, there you go. Urban Meyer is now the head coach of the Jags. It's not going to be Justin Fields. It's just not. I mean, Urban Meyer didn't even coach Fields, right? It just ended up being that, like, if he heard anything, it would be from Ryan Day being like, this dude's awesome. But it's not like they have a super personal relationship. So
they went to one basketball game together.
One basketball game together. Wow, that'd be a real leap to conclusion.
Yep.
There you go. Look, Trevor Lawrence, we've talked about it before. Probably the best prospect since Andrew Luck. Kind of has it all on the field as far as that goes. I think we're really underrating how he moves outside of the pocket as a runner. Where Zach Wilson has a lot of placement issues just because he doesn't know where to put it necessarily. Like Zach Wilson is great at ball placement, but kind of trusts himself to put it into windows. Trevor Lawrence does the same thing, kind of refuses to play it safe, but more than is able to do almost anything on the football field. Yeah, he is. If even last year, if we had the draft last year with Trevor Lawrence in it, he would have gone ahead of Burrow. That's not surprising anyone.
Yep.
It's a 1 in 100 prospect.
Definitely.
There you go. We don't even got to go into depth on that. The Jags are going to be super active in free agency, super active in the draft. They of course have another first round pick. And before we get stuck on that, Sam, why don't you take us away with the Jets who just hired Robert Saleh?
You know, this is going to be interesting because there's a lot going on with the Jets and they have a lot of potential going forward. And I think that the addition of Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator is going to really turn this offense around.
Yep.
And beyond hiring a new offensive coordinator, I think the key is going to be getting a new quarterback, and that is in Zach Wilson.
There we go. So that stays the same from last time.
It does. He's just, I think he's the third best prospect of QBs, but he's going to get picked as a second QB in the draft. Yeah. I think there's no way to argue around that. Just the fact that Fields only played 8 games for one. And
Fields also doesn't have Fields has tape that shows how to deal with him.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be as plug and play as Zach Wilson is, who has a great arm, great placement, as I just said. And look, the BYU receivers made him look worse than he was, which is insane considering he was a top candidate for the Heisman.
Yep. I actually saw a tweet the other day that said that Zach Wilson is Chad Henne 2.0, which I don't think is true at all.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
It was pretty hilarious.
Good Lord. That is idiotic.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Zach Wilson a little bit then. How well do you think Zach Wilson will fit into this like outside run type of scheme?
There's a lot going for him, and he is just, as you said, a very pass-heavy quarterback. So he will need to adjust slightly, but I think having LaFleur as his offensive coordinator is really going to help him get adjusted to that kind of offense.
Yeah.
And he has more experience than the other two top quarterbacks in the draft, and I think, as you said, I do think he is just going to be a plug and play, and he will be able to quickly adapt to that offense, especially because of LaFleur.
Yeah. I mean, look, I loved Denzel Mims last year. We talk about this all the time. The Jets, I think, had my favorite draft last year. Even just on the offensive end, I loved Mekhi Becton. I loved Denzel Mims. And then on the defensive end, they had who was it? It was Bryce Hall out of Virginia, who should have gone way ahead of the 6th round or 5th round or wherever it was. They had Ashton Davis, who I had liked a lot in the 3rd round, taken with the Giants pick, who I thought had a lot of upside. He hasn't been as impressive, but this team is not devoid of talent on offense or defense. And I don't know. I think we do have to talk about two big things when it comes to the quarterback position in the Jets. And first of all, that's, how much hope does Robert Saleh have in Sam Darnold? Because Kyle Shanahan absolutely loved Sam Darnold. And then second of all, the Jets are probably in the best position to get Deshaun Watson right now. So which of those do you want to start out with?
That's a good question. I mean, the Deshaun Watson sort of situation is just a very interesting situation that has a lot more depth to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Saleh he's sort of gonna probably talk with Darnold for the next few weeks and the next few months leading up to the draft, just to see exactly how much he trusts him.
Yeah.
And they might even do some like drills and things like that, just so we can get a feel for him, in person. But I do think that he is smart enough to know that Sam Darnold ain't it. He's not bad. I mean,
He
not
just needs
good.
a fresh start is the biggest thing.
Yeah, he needs a fresh start with a fresh offense. He was incredibly unlucky by landing at the Jets.
Yeah.
In terms of just
especially
sort of
with
building
Adam
up his.
Gase.
Oh yeah, because Gase is. Oh boy.
You want to hear the funniest stat that I looked up recently?
Sure.
The bottom 5 offenses in terms of points added by the offense last year were the Jets, the Broncos, the Giants, and the Eagles. That's the bottom 4. If you combined the Broncos, the Eagles, and the Giants, you would have negative 58 expected points added by the offense. The Jets by themselves had negative 59.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That it's a genuine miracle that the Jets won 2 games.
Yeah. I mean, they are not good. They were not
Or
good this past
I would
season.
say they're in development.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
like,
It's their rebuild basically. They're in that rebuild phase, and that's often picked upon in the NFL just because nobody likes tanking. Except for Doug Peterson,
there's also
apparently.
certain teams that have been rebuilding for like 15 years now.
Yeah. I mean, the Bucs finally rebuilt after almost 20 years when they got Brady, and it's pretty damn easy to rebuild when you have one of the best quarterbacks of all time on your team. But
some might say the best quarterback of all time.
One might say that, correct.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as the Deshaun Watson rumors go on the other side of things, I think the Jets are in the best position to get Watson, and absolutely should. I have been on record talking about how quarterback is the only position you can't afford to not get right.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback. And I can be over the moon and have an absolute draft crush on Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. I don't think either of them are going to be a top 5 quarterback next year, or probably at any point for the next 3 years. I think it's going to be so hard to get into that conversation with how good quarterback is as a position. And some might argue that Deshaun Watson isn't even there yet. I think he's clearly a top 5 quarterback. I think he's a top 4 quarterback. I might even put him in the top 3 area. Deshaun
but
Watson is incredible.
Yeah, he was the passing leader this past season and had the best QBR of any quarterback ever this past season.
He currently holds the career record for completion percentage.
Yep.
In the NFL history, which is insanity. He is damn good.
And that's considering the fact that he had like three mediocre receivers and one receiver that's been hit in the head more times than I can count. And
he had Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
And Kiki QT, and that was about it. He had 12 games of Will Fuller before he got suspended.
Yep.
None of those guys are wide receiver ones. I would argue that none of those guys are wide receiver twos either.
Cooks might be. Cooks used to be, but
Cooks used to be. That's my biggest thing. Cooks used to be. But no matter what, he's just a complimentary threat.
Yeah.
And Laramie Tunsil, say what you will, the Texans moved off Dwayne Brown to get, whatever it was. They moved him to Seattle. Bill O'Brien's ego was massive, whatever, and then traded for Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil and Dwayne Brown are the same player. Laramie Tunsil is horribly overpaid. Like, prime tackle comes at a big price, but simultaneously, like, good Lord, they paid him like he was a mid-tier quarterback. It's insane.
It's still just, the whole Hop trade is still just the most baffling and ridiculous trade I have ever seen in my almost 21 years of life.
Here's my biggest thing.
Like, they had the best receiver in the league and they traded him for Bubkiss.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is I'm pretty sure a lot of teams were scared to renegotiate his contract. That being said, you can just hold on to him. Like, you can wait for deals to unfold. You don't have to trade him for the first deal that you're like, well, this is something. And yeah, a second round pick is something. But simultaneously, we saw Amari Cooper get traded with 2 years on his deal, which I get it. Hopkins had 1 and no more guaranteed money, so he wasn't going to play without an extension. But it's ridiculous. The Texans are in an awful situation. It's kind of funny that we are at pick 3 now, which is the Texans' pick initially.
Yep.
But the Texans are screwed. There's no other way to say it. Either you trade Deshaun Watson to get back draft capital in order to draft a player that's not going to be as good as Deshaun Watson, or you keep Deshaun Watson and he refuses to play until you get the least amount of value out of him. This is a no-gain situation for the Texans. So
yeah, I mean, one thing that the Jets do have going for them if they want to get Watson, I believe I saw that they have 5 first-round picks over the next 3 years.
Yep.
So, I mean, they have the second pick this year. They're probably going to have a pretty high pick next year.
They have second this year, and I think 23. Yeah, 23.
Yeah, so they could have 23. So it's, they still have that available for them. So they could trade away Watson. They could trade for Watson, and trade away that second pick, and then still get a damn good player at 23.
Yeah, you can trade 2. Their second round pick is going to be at 34, I think. And just go from there and build a beautiful package for Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
And, call me biased, Deshaun Watson is my favorite player in the NFL. But despite all of that, I can be objective and say he's damn good.
100%.
And there's nearly no price that is too large for a franchise quarterback, and not only that, for a top 5 quarterback.
And he should have won the Heisman over Lamar. Saying it here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anyone who can make Dabo Swinney look like a competent offensive coach deserves all the praise in the world.
And that is coming from a guy that despises Clemson. So
I don't despise Clemson. I just hate.
No, I'm saying from me, it's coming from a guy that despises Clemson. That
there you go.
Watson definitely deserved the Heisman there.
Yeah. All right, then I'm going to take 3rd overall, the Dolphins. Last time we had them going Devontae Smith, and I'm going to say already, this is the first time where that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I have been on the record talking about how the Dolphins have invested heavily into offensive line and they have some talent there. Now, the more I think about this, if you're not replacing Tua, and that's still a big if, and if you're not trading for Deshaun Watson, you still need to replace the franchise left tackle that you traded away. And no matter what, you need to establish an offensive line because Tua is not mobile. We know this.
Yeah.
Austin Jackson has not been particularly good. And the biggest thing about Tua is that you need a tackle that can play on the right side. Because they had Jedrick Wills playing at Alabama on the right side. He has switched to the left tackle in the NFL because Tua needed his right side protected.
Mhm.
Penei Sewell has that capability. Just absolutely has that capability. And where I think it would be interesting is I saw someone say that, at the end of the day, maybe Rashawn Slater is the first tackle off the board because of his high floor instead of, someone like Penei Sewell. I think that's ridiculous. I was, all aboard taking, a Mekhi Becton, a Tristan Wirfs last year. That's going to be a super high potential player over just a high floor offensive tackle. The Giants, my team, took a high floor offensive tackle and ended up with the fourth best out of the 4 top tier offensive tackles. So I don't think you go high floor. I think you go with someone who, has shown the ability to play on the left side if you move off Tua in a year, on the right side to protect Tua, can make up for injury deficiencies, all of that. You're going Penei Sewell. I have done a bit of asset management over the past few weeks, just looking at the wide receiver position. And I said last time that I wouldn't take a tackle that wasn't at the level of someone like, I don't know, Megatron.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do that. And the more I look at Devontae Smith, the more I think I'm not taking a 6 foot flat, 190-pound wide receiver here.
Yeah.
And I don't need Jamar Chase because I have my jump ball receiver in Mike Gesicki or in Preston Williams, Devontae Parker. I have that archetype filled already. So I was thinking about Jalen Waddle a little bit. I was thinking about Penei Sewell. There was no way I was going Devontae Smith here. And I just thought that Penei Sewell fit this team better, was better value at the pick. And, I thought I'd change it up a little bit than just go wide receiver at 3 every time. So there you go.
Plus-
There's the justification for Penei Sewell.
Right. Plus, having Penei Sewell would sort of help Myles Gaskin as well because he struggled this past year a bit.
Yeah, and then he
But-
exploded later on.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that it would keep him around and want to stay there as well. And I think it could really turn that offense into a next level offense, just
Yeah.
protecting the quarterback and protecting the running backs.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I mean, look, there's a 3-step plan to creating a capable roster in the NFL. Step 1 is find a franchise quarterback. Step 2 is find a franchise disruptor, so usually a pass rusher. And then step 3 is protect against pass rushers. And everything after that is secondary. So there you go.
Absolutely.
And you don't know if Tua is the franchise guy, but you're sure as hell not moving off him after what was, in comparison to Herbert and Burrow, was not a great offensive year. In comparison to rookies throughout history, was a very good offensive year.
I mean, it was just weird that whole offense just switching back between him and
Yeah.
Fitzmagic there. It's
Yeah.
it
I mean,
was-
they really
and
need
that,
to
and that
figure
game
out.
against the Raiders, that last game of the season or the second to last game,
Yeah.
whatever that was, that
Yep.
was just a weird time for him. I don't think he's necessarily ready for those big, playoff level moments, like winner, you're out of the playoffs sort of moments.
Yeah.
But with some more growth, I think he definitely could be up there.
I just don't think that offense is built towards his strengths at all. And I hope that Brian Flores and the coaching staff down there can, adapt to that and change around that. So there you
Definitely.
go. All right, Sam, you got the Falcons. Is
All right,
it staying the same as last draft?
You know what? It is. It is staying Justin Fields of The Ohio State University. I'd say probably a top 3 favorite college player of all time for me. He's, and that's spoken biased, of course.
Yeah.
But he is.
Look, I'm not even an Ohio State fan. I can agree. He is my favorite prospect to come out over the past, 10 years.
I mean, he's a beast. He can throw well. He was throwing, 60-yard passes with broken ribs his past 2 games. He was sprinting. He basically almost tore I can't remember exactly what it was, but in one of the last games or I think the second last game of the previous season, he hurt his knee pretty bad and was out for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Came back with a brace on and was still running for 20 yards if he had to.
Yeah,
His
he is the
just
ultimate
pocket.
competitor.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot going for him. He is a dual threat as the duelist of dual threats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
like if you put a Big Ten spotlight on what Dak Prescott was doing at Mississippi State, except with more potential upside in terms of short accuracy, middle of the field looks, and deep arm strength. So
and better coaching as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And one thing that I'm not sure if he's gonna. I doubt that if he was drafted by the Falcons, he would get the starting job in week 1. I don't know if he would get the starting job by week 8. But they might have a sort of similar thing that the Eagles had this past season, where they have, their, I guess, I want to say veteran. Obviously Matt Ryan's a veteran, but Wentz isn't really a veteran compared to Hurts is a veteran. But
yeah,
they have their older, pretty much franchise quarterback on that team, and they're going to mentor them. And then it's possible that they just hired a new GM today, so it's possible that they realize that Matt Ryan just ain't got it no more.
Yeah,
and bring the young guy in and turn that offense around. And man, with Julio and Ridley on that team, man, with Fields thrown to them, that's going to be some pretty offense.
Yeah, I mean, also Arthur Smith, who was the offensive coordinator for the Titans, is now the head coach there. And of course, you got to get an actual running back in there. Todd Gurley's done, but having a dual threat quarterback that is a faster and stronger runner than Ryan Fitzpatrick, than Ryan Tannehill, in a similar style of offense could be deadly. And unlike Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, I think Justin Fields would be if the Falcons get a good running back and can start rebuilding that defense, I think Justin Fields would be in a great situation there.
Yep.
Now, I don't think Julio Jones is going to be around long term. Obviously, right. I think Julio Jones might even be traded this offseason.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. And look, having Justin Fields sit for however many weeks behind Matt Ryan, even if it's, 15 weeks like it was for Mahomes behind Alex Smith. And Alex Smith is not even close to the level that Matt Ryan is.
Right.
Even if you have that, it's so much more beneficial to slowly learn than to be thrown into the fire. And fans won't like it. Fans want to see their draft picks on the field, but it's still the right move, in my opinion.
And I mean, Matt Ryan is also he's not a, fantastic quarterback, but he's a damn good quarterback.
Yeah.
And he is, I don't know exactly his character, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to be a hell of a mentor for Justin Fields to sort of get him more adjusted to the pros. Field has played in the spotlight. He's in the second biggest conference in the country in college, and so he's used to having the spotlight on him. But he played in both and the two biggest conferences basically, and he's played on the biggest fields in college football, and so it's definitely he has sort of exposure to that. But I think just adjusting to the pros, Matt Ryan is really going to help out with that. Yeah.
I also just think it's really fun to see Justin Fields going back to Georgia.
Mm-hmm. He's in Atlanta right now, actually.
Yeah. I mean, and going back to the Jets thing, Deshaun Watson is currently in New York. So.
Yep.
There you go. I mean, I love thinking about, Calvin Ridley running a short slant or a 5-yard out and just being hit with the ball right where it's supposed to be, and then just bursting off.
Yep.
And
Hayden Hurst there as well.
Hayden Hurst, yep. And the Falcons are admittedly probably going to lose that game 35-27.
Naturally.
Justin Fields will work his ass off to make that as close as it can be. He's a great quarterback. He's an even better leader. And it's kind of important for teams that lose their direction to get great characters in the locker room. Like Lawrence Taylor for the Giants, kind of set that precedent And you just look around the league. Look at what the character of Tom Brady has done in Tampa Bay. Get characters with high, whatever it's called, undefinables, and or intangibles is the word, but who cares? And then go from there. And of course, the talent has to be there. And with Justin Fields, it is more than there. So
Absolutely.
I would buy one of those jerseys ASAP.
I would
And
too.
here we are with the Bengals. This is the worst case scenario for the Bengals. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, do I double down and take a wide receiver just because it's, the top players available are pretty much all wide receivers? Do I take a corner who, there is not a single good cornerback on the Bengals roster at all. So much so that, Draft Network has corner 1 and corner 2 as their needs. But I don't know what to do here. This is such a horribly difficult situation. I don't think Micah Parsons is a scheme fit. And so, and then I think going wide receiver may be a mistake. However, for me, it's between Patrick Surtain and Jamar Chase. Because, Joe Mixon said that thing about, oh, we get in a tackle in free agency. We talked last week about how you're probably not, or at least not one that's worth anything. And then we get in Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase. I just think that if you already have the slot guy, the elusive guy, the technician type player, and then you also have Auden Tate, who had a down year, but I still like, you got to get the physical, go up and get it guy. Or do I want Patrick Surtain to be an actual defensive player on that side? I don't know, man. The more I talk about this, the more difficult it gets. And of course, last time we went Penei Sewell here. Let's see. I'm gonna make this interesting. I'm going Patrick Surtain. I really love him as a cornerback prospect. I think he is incredibly impressive. I haven't put him on Jalen Ramsey levels quite yet, but I think he can be very similar to Jair Alexander, who we just saw play absolutely dominant football in the conference. No, it's the divisionals. I don't know, whatever round it was. I don't know the name of it because my brain isn't working. But we've seen how important it is in a passing league to have a lockdown set of defensive backs. The Bengals don't have that, and in that division, the Ravens' number one need is a number one receiver. They're going to go out and get that. The Steelers keep drafting great receivers. You need someone that's going to at least shut down Deontay Johnson, who is currently the best receiver on that team. And then
they have Von Bell, but he's good, but he's probably
Von
not going
Bell
to
a
be there.
safety.
Yeah, I'm just saying, talk about defensive backs just in general.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be there next season. I think they're probably going to try and trade him.
Yeah. I mean, this is also a team that needs some actual youth on the defensive side.
Yeah, he also has a player option to get out of the contract as well. So
yeah, and they don't have any type of youth there.
Von Bell's only 4 years, only in the league for 4 years, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean, corner is so important in this new league with all the passing rules and all that. And as fun as wide receiver is, I think wide receiver is honestly one of the last things you should draft when you have a really well-built team. I almost never would take a wide receiver in the top 5. I said I just straight up would not take a wide receiver in the top 3. Again, unless it's like a guaranteed Hall of Fame talent. So I went into it on my Twitter, how, top receivers are almost never taken at the top of the draft. And there you go. I don't think you go receiver on a team with this many holes. I think you fill a need first with a player that's still damn good, and you go from there. I love Patrick Surtain. He is my Giants draft crush, him and Micah Parsons. So, I mean, I do what I can.
All right. Time for the Eagles.
For the Eagles, yeah.
If you hadn't taken Surtain, I would have taken Surtain for the Eagles.
Well, lucky for you, there's another top first round cornerback available if you want him in Caleb Farley.
I'm actually just debating between Farley and Kyle Pitts.
Ooh, Another
'Cause-
tight end.
Yeah, because Zach Ertz, I think he's probably done in
He's
Philadelphia.
guaranteed done.
Yeah, and Dallas Goedert, he's not bad, but
He also has serious injury issues.
yeah, their tight end, it's one of their weaker aspects of their offense, and they also obviously need a wide receiver to sort of boost
Yeah.
that their ability to actually pose a threat to certain teams.
Yeah. They desperately need a linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of parts that they would need to improve that team. They just went, what was it, 4-11-1 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yep. I think
And
that's exactly what it was.
they're not a good team. They had not been the same team since they won the Super Bowl, but I do think this is actually kind of a tough decision here because I'm also tempted to take Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith just because. I mean, for one, Hurts
They're
has the
good
relationship with
players,
Smith.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're good players, and they need the depth down the field and on the offense. But
Yep.
I think honestly, their best option right now is going to be Kyle Pitts. So I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts.
That's a super interesting pick.
Yeah, we discussed it last week. I think you chose the Panthers taking Pitts.
Yep.
Which is also just a really good pick, and
Yeah.
I
Look,
think that
I fucking love Kyle Pitts.
he is
In terms of if he was just a pure receiver, he'd be my wide receiver too. That's how much I love him. He's game breaking.
One of the best tight ends we've seen come out of college recently.
Yeah. Look, TJ Hawkinson got taken top 10, and he was not even close to as good as Kyle Pitts has been.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts. I think if Kyle Pitts played a bigger position, like if he played wide receiver, then he would have also been in the Heisman contention.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole issue of labels where people are like, "Oh, we don't need a tight end." Like, no. You're selling Kyle Pitts short. Like, he made a Florida team. We thought Kyle Trask was damn good. And then as soon as Kyle Pitts leaves the lineup, he has his worst game of the year by a long shot. All right?
Yep.
Kyle Pitts is incredible. He's dynamic. And also, the Eagles love playing in jumbo packages. That's how they love to run they love running in duo. And they do it all the time. And if Zach Ertz is gone, why not add, a player that last year, Zach Ertz was not a good receiving tight end.
Nope.
Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Kyle Pitts is going to be day one an incredible receiving tight end. He's going to give the Eagles what could be the top red zone offense once they get there, because I don't know how you're going to set up both tight ends on the outside of the tackles and then just be able to throw jump balls or go with a run with Miles Sanders or go in the read option. Like that, and especially if you're starting Jalen Hurts, who I think we can agree is maybe not better than Carson Wentz, but it's certainly more dynamic at like outside of the pocket and leaving the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. And I do think he also has a higher ceiling than Wentz does. I think Wentz has almost reached his ceiling, but Hurts definitely has a long way to go. But I think he has a lot more room to grow than Wentz does.
Yeah. I mean, I think this pick is kind of insane. I think Eagles fans would lose their mind. That being said, I think it's a good pick. Kyle Pitts, I don't know. I feel like we need to just like we stopped calling defensive ends and outside linebackers defensive ends or outside linebackers. We started calling them linebackers or edges, depending on what their role was. I think we need to have like offensive weapons versus blocking tight end, because that's the specification that Kyle Pitts needs, where he is just an absolute offensive weapon. He has the full arsenal for a tight end.
I mean, he kind of reminds me of Darren Waller, actually.
Yeah, exactly. He's Darren Waller that run blocks well.
Yeah.
And even though that's the downfall of his game, it's not bad. It's just average. And if that improves for an Eagles team that needs a dynamic weapon, they're going to love him. And that team is going to be dangerous. And sadly, that would mean the Giants are likely the worst team in the division. But I do think linebacker would be a bigger need. I just think Micah Parsons doesn't fit. And there's no way I'm taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at this spot. Like that's just not happening. Even though he is the best pick, just like as a coverage linebacker to the Eagles.
All right, on to you for the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about how wide receiver is such a huge need for the Lions, mostly because like when you think about it, Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, even Mohamed Sanu is a free agent, but I think Kenny Golladay is back no matter what. All we've heard is Kenny Golladay loves the city of Detroit, is comfortable being there, all of that. We've also heard that Matt Stafford doesn't want to go into another rebuild. And you had the Trey Lance pick last time. I think that's super interesting. I just really don't know what to do with the Lions. And we go back to them needing a linebacker. We go back to them needing offensive line help. And I just think when it comes to positional value, edge is huge. And they have Trey Flowers, but he's getting older. They just have a lot of send-offs, right? And Curtis Weaver had a super surprising year it was Julian Aquara, had a super surprising year for what is a second or third year, late-ish round pick. But I'm still not, sold on him as a real edge presence. That being said, for me, it's between. I feel like we keep doing this game where it's like, oh, who is it between? It's Trey Lance, it's Kwity Paye, and it's Micah Parsons. I would consider, actually, you know what? We're going to go with my second-rated tackle here. We're going to go with someone that's going to, day one, help the Lions just succeed on the offensive line. And, yeah, we're going Rashawn Slater here. I heard that disapproving.
I find it's an interesting pick. Yeah.
I mean, again, we go back to building the offensive line. Rashawn Slater is going to be a day one starter. He is high floor to the max. And in this case, I don't think that's a bad thing because he also has a decently high ceiling with his positional versatility. He studies well. You can see that in his footwork. You can see how heavily he studies the matchup with different edge presences, with how he moves his feet, how he sets up his hands. And I have never seen him flat out embarrassed. And that's impressive. That's super impressive for someone who plays at Northwestern. I think Rashawn Slater is incredibly good. I don't think they're taking a wide receiver. The only wide receiver I'd be willing to take inside the top 10 is Jamar Chase, who I think is an absolute physical freak. And he kind of overlaps with, who he overlaps with Kenny Golladay. Jamar Chase is a slightly shorter, far more explosive Kenny Golladay, in my opinion. And I don't think you can have two of those players and succeed. That being said, I also don't think I part of me also just didn't want to go Trey Lance because I don't like repeating picks. But I also think that maybe this Lions team is willing to give it one more run. They didn't last year where, they didn't take Tua, didn't take Herbert, and instead took Okudah. And this team still needs another corner, which was why Caleb Farley was in the back of my mind. But Micah Parsons is a hybrid backer. You have what's his name? Oh my God, what is Jamie Collins? Inside linebacker. They have a lot of linebackers that they've just taken from the Patriots, and I see that linebacker is one of their biggest needs. I couldn't
Collins.
justify it. And the Lions are such a weird pick because there's like money wise, you're probably taking a Devontae Smith. I thought about taking Devontae Smith as a compliment to Kenny Golladay, even a Jalen Waddle. I thought about a Kwity Paye just because you can never have too many edge presences. There were few things that I value more than good offensive line play, and the Lions keep investing in that. But also, I don't think you want the fourth quarterback this year that's going to sit for a year.
Yeah.
I don't think you really want to sit back with that. You build up the offensive line. You can go get a quarterback next year. This does change if Matt Stafford requests a trade, at which point you have to go out there and get a quarterback. But
yeah,
how insane is it to say that maybe Kyle Trask lands with the Lions in the second round, and they get their quarterback there. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's how I'm thinking about it.
it's definitely a possibility. Him or Mac Jones, I think, would still be there in the second round.
Yeah.
I do think Trask is better than Mac Jones, but
Yeah, I saw some absurd draft that I had Mac Jones going 4th overall, and I just had to stare at it for a little bit because I I don't know how you can look. He may have had a great year, but I don't know how you can take someone who's not going to have any elite physical measurements, did not look particularly insane in college or on film, and just came off a year where he had the best collection of weapons in all of college football. So
yeah, and he's also only started 1 year.
yeah,
I'm sure he spent 4 years under the best coach in college football history, but
yeah, and
it's not, that doesn't mean a lot.
by that logic, he's also relatively old as a prospect.
Yeah, I think
How
he's
old
like
is he?
23 or something.
Oh well, it doesn't say how old he is. That's too bad. That's
Let me
not
check. I'm
appreciated.
pretty sure that he's 23, but I could be wrong. He might have been like maybe a graduate student, like 22. All right, so he turns 23 later this year. So
Yeah,
he'll basically turn 23 in like the 4th week of the NFL season.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, and that's one thing that sort of I saw people not liking Burrow just because he was like 23, almost turning 24. He was, the Heisman winner was older than the MVP
yeah,
of the NFL this past season. So
yeah. I
age is
forget what
definitely
the
an issue.
number was. I think Lamar Jackson is still younger than Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it's by like
A few months. Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's
yeah.
because Joe Burrow, he didn't play
In
his first
college for
year. He
so
was a
long.
graduate transfer. He played 2 years as a graduate student. He's basically in college for 6 years. So it definitely didn't help him there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so interesting to talk about these quarterbacks that are staying longer or shorter. Like we saw Justin Herbert go back for an extra year and,
Yep.
kept his stock at the same place. Giants would have taken him at 6. Instead, he goes at 6 to the Chargers. And I don't know, it kind of works out when you just get one more bite at the apple.
Yeah.
So there you go. Sam, you got the Panthers, who are, probably not too excited with how things have shaken out. Or
Yeah.
actually, no. They're over the moon.
Yeah, they missed out on some changes and additions to the offense. I mean, pretty much the only offensive addition that they need is a quarterback and
Yeah.
maybe an offensive tackle or two. But they have, I would say they're up there in terms of their offensive weapons outside of quarterback
Yep.
in the NFC. They have Robbie Anderson is good. He's not great, but he's good. Curtis Samuel had a great year. Obviously
Curtis
McCaffrey,
Samuel is a free agent, although, but even then, it's not like
yeah,
you can't replace a hybrid slot receiver who can also
right.
run.
McCaffrey is
Incredible.
he's top 3 running back for the past 10 years, I would say. And
For me, he's just the best running back in the league right now. So
yeah, I would agree. And this past season he played 3 games, but still, he is their best player on their team. He's going to be their best player on the team for as long as he's there. Unless they get like Mahomes to the Panthers, which that's never going to happen. But
or Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yep.
Bridgewater is not good. He's okay.
He's exactly what his name says. He's a bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I mean he's there during the rebuild. He's sort of the interim coach for quarterback.
Yep.
And he did have the benefit of learning under Drew Brees. Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks of the past 10 years, and he's a great mentor to all his players. And it's been known that he is just a phenomenal leader.
Yeah. And he also had one of the saddest ends to a career I've ever seen.
Absolutely. But there isn't a good enough quarterback here to justify for the Panthers to take a quarterback. Trey Lance is good, but I don't think they would take him. So I think their only option here, the best way that they could improve their team at this point, is by getting Micah Parsons.
Ooh, I like it.
Their defense is non-existent. They had the Buccaneers put like 55 on them earlier this season.
That being said, I think they're just a few years away from being a top defense in the NFL.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a lot of growth there that's necessary, but adding Micah Parsons, who is just a beast, is really, really going to help them out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love him as a hybrid guy. He is a better edge rusher than a coverage guy, which is where he's different from Luke Kuechly or anything like that. Different, which is why the hole is there at linebacker. Um, but even that, adding a third edge presence would just absolutely wreck any offensive line. You have Brian Burns, who's the athletic freak. You have Yetur Gross-Matos, who's huge and incredibly powerful. And then you have Micah Parsons, who's, the guy who has all the moves. And he's going to he's not going to, outspeed, outstrength any real, offensive tackle or anything, but he is going to get past them. And
Yeah.
even then, he's no slouch in coverage. Like, it's not where he makes his money, but he's also not like a liability there. And yeah, I love the pick. I mean, I think the Panthers obviously have to look at Caleb Farley as well, because they do not have any type of corner help. It's just essentially non-existent there.
Yeah, I mean, he's also a bit light for a
yeah.
a linebacker, but he's tough and strong. He reminds me. I think in terms of defensive linemen in the last few years, I think he's sort of the Chase Young of linebackers, and he's a beast. He will push through an offensive line and will take you down.
I would say he's more so like a Bosa brother of the linebackers.
Yeah,
Chase
I could
Young
see that.
had the crazy athleticism along with some good hands work, and the Bosa brothers just made their money by being incredibly technical, incredible use of hands, incredible use of moves. So
Yeah, definitely.
there you go. Yeah, I mean, I like the Micah Parsons pick. I mean, if they aren't sold on Trey Lance, and if they aren't, there's no reason to pick him. Then there's no other quarterback I would go with a top 10 pick.
Yep.
I think this is a team that could trade up to the top 3 or 4 or whatever, but of course we're not doing any trades in this draft. I like it. I really do. It makes me think a little bit, but I like it.
Yeah.
All right, we're at the Broncos. I think you gave them Caleb Farley last time.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I remember it was a corner of some kind. I'm going to change that up a little bit. I think the number one priority of this offseason, if it's not getting a quarterback, has to be replacing Von Miller. And Von Miller should be a Bronco for life. And look, the Broncos have been able to find edge presences out the woodwork over the past 5 years. Like Shaquille Barrett was there. DeMarcus Lawrence was there for the Super Bowl runs. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, like the list goes on. But that pantry has run a little dry recently. And again, this team has no need whatsoever for a receiver, like at all. And same with the Cowboys at 10. So I'm going Kwity Paye. I think as good as Caleb Farley is, as much as I like him, I do prefer Patrick Surtain by a pretty wide margin. I just think you gotta add more to the edge pantry. And having more powerful edge rushers, even adding some sort of defensive tackle in the draft to help those guys actually collapse the pocket could be huge. If you have Kwity Paye, Bradley Chubb, and then you add, I don't know, a J2 Fele, someone like that, a Christian Barmore, you just start building this team won a Super Bowl off of genuinely average quarterback play and an incredible defensive line with good weapons on the outside. Yep. So you build the trenches. There's no offense, like their offensive line is built well. I really like Dalton Reisner. I like what they've built there. I loved Lloyd Cushenberry last year, the center out of LSU. And I mean, now it's time to go to the defensive end. I think Kwity Paye fits this team. I think they are going to go after an edge if they can't find some way to get a top quarterback. And yeah, this team is built for the future. They might be a team that looks at a free agent quarterback and says, hey, look at all the weapons we have. Look at the offensive line we've built. We're a few steps away from a defense, but we can do this. They are another team that really should be looking into Deshaun Watson super heavily.
Yeah, I do agree with you for the most part on this. And I of course, I'm not a huge fan of Michigan, as many people would know, but I do think a lot of their players are boom or bust in the pros. They got very, very lucky by having, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, being from their team. He was a non-factor in college. Was picked in the fifth round, sixth
Sixth,
rounds.
sixth, 199 overall.
Yeah, and it's just Brady is the best player to come out of Michigan, and he will probably always be the best player to come out of Michigan. Um, and there are some decent Michigan players in the league right now other than Brady. It's definitely a big risk, especially with the current coaching situation at Michigan. But I do think that for this team, a non-quarterback pick, Kwity
Yep.
Paye is the best one.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I want to see how far Trey Lance falls, because I think the Giants should take a look at him, but they won't. And I mean, the 49ers could use a quarter. Well, we'll get into that when we get into that. But yeah, I just think we know the type of quarterback the Broncos like, and Trey Lance is not that. And even then, I would say I'm more willing to give Drew Lock another year, just because, like, yes, he has the turnover problem, but he's also like genuinely super exciting at times.
Yeah.
And the Broncos have not been able to figure out quarterback for ages, at least not in the draft. And I'm willing to give Drew Lock another year. I like what I've seen from Drew Lock, who has actually put up 300-yard games, 400-yard games with 4 touchdowns in the past year, who has done that, as opposed to, his other draft mates. Like, Kyler's awesome, but yeah, Kyler's awesome, period. Daniel Jones did not put up
Yep.
a single 300-yard passing game this year, I don't think. Dwayne Haskins, cut. Like, that's it. Looked awful this year. And then you have like Gardner Minshew, who hasn't done much. Will Greer, who isn't even in the rotation, or can't be in the rotation for quarterback for the Panthers. But I don't know. Quarterback that year was so hard. We've talked about that. But I think Drew Lock is very decidedly the second best quarterback in that class, and I'd be willing to give him one more year.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
All right, Sam, let's hear it. Cowboys.
This is another interesting situation. And, we sort of mentioned earlier that they're a damn good team.
Yep.
If they had Dak healthy,
Yep.
I think that they would have gone. They probably would have had a positive record and would have easily won the division.
Yep.
I don't think they would have even lost to a division rival if Dak was healthy. But Dak is coming back. I don't know why it says that the QB is their third highest need. He's
probably contract reasons, but
I guess. But I mean, I don't see Dak going anywhere anytime soon.
Yep.
And the one thing that might be worried about is his athleticism after that devastating ankle injury.
Yep.
But
like Hayward.
Yeah, but it's definitely he is the keystone of that offense, and he will continue to be the keystone of that offense for a long time.
Yep.
The issue where they have faltered this past season, other than having the Red Rocket as their quarterback, is their defense. And I think their best option is going to be to draft Caleb Farley, just to improve that defense. Their secondary is just mediocre at best.
Yep.
And there's a lot of improvement that they need there. And once they do that, man, they are going to be. I hate the Cowboys, but man, they're going to be a fun team to watch, and they're gonna tear up the NFC West.
Yeah, or NFC East, but yeah.
NFC East. I apologize. Yeah.
I mean, I would think about Christian Darrisaw or Sam Cosmi here, especially with the contract issues that are coming to this team, especially on the offensive line, the age and injury history of players on that line, Connor McGovern, Lyle Collins, all of that. And I would think about tackle there, just because, the whole contract situation. There's a lot of issues with this team, but there's also a huge amount of upside. I've talked about how I don't think one corner can help in the short term very much, and the Cowboys are certainly a team that's looking into the short term, whereas the Bengals were a team that's looking into the long term. So I like the pick. I'm starting to turn into someone who would take tackle for the Cowboys. But yeah, I mean, this is the pick that makes sense. Like, if you are going to go with secondary, you take, or if you're going to go with defense, you take the best defensive starter available,
Yeah.
and that's clearly Farley at this point.
Yep. I mean, if Parsons was there, sure, go for Parsons, but he's not going to be there at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and who knows if Quiddy Pay will be there either. So
Yeah.
there we go. I get the joy of making my team's pick this time. Maybe this was my goal all along when I said, let me take the odds. Who knows? No one will ever know because I will never admit to it.
Mac Jones.
Yeah, I'm taking Trey Lance so I can replace what is clearly my least favorite quarterback in the NFL. But no. This has to be receiver. If the top 3 receivers are all here and the top corners are gone and Micah Parsons is gone, this has to be receiver. And I'm going to take the only receiver I would take in the top 10 or would take with a fringe. Well, at this point, I think is a steal. And I'm going to take Jamar Chase. It stays the same, even though the board is entirely different. I mean, if I'm taking a wide receiver this high, I want there to be something distinctively special about them body wise or athleticism wise. And I've heard all the Devontae Smith things, and I'm not going with that. I think, I'm going to need to get some water after this pick. I think Jalen Waddle is a great player as far as speed goes. He's even more than just a speed guy, and I think that's pretty clear. But I don't think it's going to be Devontae Smith because I think Devontae Smith is another one of those technicians who, creeps in and out of zones, runs great routes to get open that way, but isn't going to be anything insane. I've compared him to a prime Emmanuel Sanders. I just think Jamar Chase is going to be a monster. And for a team that needed some real playmaker in the red zone, or even like going deep, Daniel Jones has an issue with placement. He has an issue throwing the ball deep. I don't think you can take the most advantage of Waddle if you can't go deep, and the most advantage of Smith if you don't have good placement.
Yeah.
That being said, I think Jamar Chase is just gonna he's gonna beat corners to the point of the catch, and he's gonna beat them if they're both there, and he's just out physical them. So I think he is, in my opinion, the best receiver in this class. And he's also the most imposing athleticism and physically wise receiver, and that's what I look for in a receiver. I want someone who has real definable strengths that aren't just, hey, well, his tape looked good when he was being covered. I'm talking about Devontae Smith. His tape looked good when he was covered by linebackers, and he didn't go against any top cornerback in college football this year. And I know that you like Devontae Smith a lot. I know he's your top ranked wide receiver, but the more I watch him, the less sold I am on him as a true number 1 receiver. I think he's going to be a very, very good, like 1B or something like that. I just don't think he's a true number 1. And if the Giants are going wide receiver, if anyone's going wide receiver this high, it needs to be a true number 1.
Yeah, and I do think that he has. I mentioned this last time. Jamar Chase has been about outshined at LSU. He had, the best quarterbacks in recent history for at least a season with Joe Burrow, and he was outshined by Justin Jefferson, and even Clyde Edwards-Helaire was sort of outshining Jamar Chase last season. But
this Jamar Chase had more yards, more receptions, more touchdowns than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, definitely. It's just Jamar Chase was the sophomore, and nobody really was paying attention to it. They were paying attention to this potential, who very well might be the offensive rookie of the year this season.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we've seen what Justin Jefferson can do in the NFL. And it's 1,400 yards and, being absolutely awesome before and after the catch in terms of separation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best rookie seasons by a Viking since Randy Moss.
Well, the best rookie wide receiver performance since Randy Moss.
Yeah, definitely.
Outside of maybe Michael Thomas, like tops.
Yep. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see how he does adapt as well, just because, LSU this past season was terrible. But it'll definitely just be interesting to see exactly how he can adjust, if he's going to be able to adjust like Jefferson does.
Yeah.
And I do think he will be able to, because as you said, he is a beast. He's tough, strong, and I think he will be able to adapt to playing against those big pro level corners.
Yeah. I just think, like, at the end of the day, especially with how weird the combine's going to be this year, you want someone who absolutely dominated when they were in. And between those two, that's Jalen Waddle dominated when he played. Jamar Chase dominated when he played. Devontae Smith dominated when Jalen Waddle didn't play.
Yep.
Those are the three things. And I think, I'm trying to get away from this, what have you done for me lately type thing, because Jamar Chase has kind of gone under the radar now. We have people saying, he's my wide receiver 3. I had someone, I saw someone, what's the wide receiver out of Purdue? Oh my God. Out of Purdue, Rondale Moore. I had someone tell me that they had Rondale Moore over Jamar Chase. And I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think Jamar Chase is the most imposing, most interesting. And for a team that needs a true wide receiver 1 and someone who's just going to be fun, and he's going to make bad quarterbacks look good. Devontae Smith is going to make a good quarterback look even better inside of what he makes into a great offense.
Yep.
So I think, at the end of the day, what's the ceiling for Jamar Chase? It might be DeAndre Hopkins. It genuinely might be. That's how impressed I am with Jamar Chase. Yeah. All right.
49ers.
Yeah. You explain the pick while I'm going to go get some water and fill up my water bottle very quick.
All right. Now, the 49ers, they definitely have a lot going for them. If they have their team fully healthy, which it hasn't been this past year, they definitely need to make sure everybody's back healthy. But I do not think Garoppolo is, their option going forward. And I think Kyle Shanahan does not think that Garoppolo is their guy going forward. And realistically, the position that they need to change is at that quarterback position. But I think that their best option would be trading this pick for Deshaun Watson, as well as several other positions. And it's interesting because obviously we're not doing the trades and our mock draft here, but it would not surprise me if they didn't actually pick 12th. If they didn't even have a first round pick, just because they trade away that for Deshaun Watson. But
yeah, I mean, even if it's outside of Deshaun Watson, this is a team that's built off of asset management. John Lynch, we need to move down, and then he'll have some flyers that'll go out there. Well, the D Ford trade.
Yeah,
he'll have stuff like that where he'll give up a few seconds to get D Ford, but he's always going to take a shot, and he's always going to try to build up assets so that he can take those shots without leaving himself in a bad situation. So if the 49ers aren't taking Trey Lance here, that's probably what's going to happen, because they don't need Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle at this point.
They definitely, they have a good wide receiver sort of core, especially when Kittle is back and fully healthy.
Yep.
I was explaining while you were gone that just, Garoppolo ain't it. He's not going to be there. Kyle Shanahan.
He doesn't change stuff.
Yeah. He led them to the Super Bowl, but I would argue that was under Kittle, and
he also lost them the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do think that realistically they are going to trade this. They are going to try and trade this pick away. But if they don't trade the pick away, then I think they're taking Trey Lance.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
We discussed last time, he's a great quarterback. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks that come out of that
North
level
Dakota
of
State.
the college football. North Dakota State, you had Wentz,
football,
and he was, Wentz was decent. And I mean, Wentz was actually phenomenal in college.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he, was the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, second overall. And why the Eagles gave up so damn much to the Titans to get up there.
And he was also the highest pick ever picked out of that division of college football.
Yeah.
And it's, they see that program is dominant. They're the Alabama of that division.
Alabama of, yeah.
I mean, not even the Alabama. They are I don't even
They're
know.
the mid-'80s Cowboys.
Yeah, mid-'80s Cowboys. They're the '90s Bulls of that
Yeah.
division.
Yep.
They have won more times in the championship than they have lost, and and they've been in the championship almost every single season.
They are the Australian cricket team.
Yes, to
Yeah.
our 0 cricket fans out there, and there's a lot that they definitely need to improve on as a school, but the
Yeah.
QB position is not one of them. He barely had any weapons as well, and it's sort of similar to the Zach Wilson pick.
Yeah.
His
You
weapons
know,
or lack
not
thereof made him
giving
look worse.
what is essentially a bad program or unknown programs and making them
Exactly.
look good because they're just game changing.
Yep, and I do think that because we aren't doing any trades, and QB is a necessity for them. And
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan knows that, man. He's a smart coach. He knows exactly what they need to fix up that team. For one, they need to make sure everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
But then just get a quarterback there. They have the great receiver core. They have Ayuk's going to be going into his second season. I'm a huge fan of Ayuk. He's great to watch, and I think he's going to be a great receiver going forward. And, Kittle is top 2 tight end in the league, and obviously wasn't this past season, but he only played like 5 games. But
exactly.
And of course, you could say, "Oh, Richard Sherman, he's probably leaving, so you need to draft somebody else. You need to continue building up that secondary." But I mean, come on, even if
There's
he does
no
leave,
secondary available.
yeah,
Like
even
you're not going J.C. Horn at 12.
Yeah, I mean, if Farley was there, sure, why not? But the number one thing that they do need to improve that team is just simply improving that quarterback position, because Garoppolo is just okay. He's okay at best.
Yep.
Nick Mullins is bad at best.
Yep. Bad at best. That's a mood.
And I mean, like, I'm impressed that people like Ayuk were able to have that good of a season.
Yeah.
And God, what's the other guy's name?
You bought Ayuk stock real early.
I did. And, he and I are both we both went to Arizona State, so that's one thing that I really like about him. But also, he just God, who's the other guy that I can't remember his name? The other receiver that basically Ayuk
Debo Samuel.
Debo Samuel. Like, he basically took the WR1 slot from him, but that also had to do with injuries. But they have a decent receiver core, and a QB, man, adding an accurate QB like Trey Lance to that is going to be game changing.
I can't imagine the situation where you have Kittle, blocking, and of course you're going to be scared of Kittle being a receiving threat. Then you have Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk overlapping in motion to make it seem like it's some sort of like outside run from one of them, because those are wide receivers that are, that run the ball all the time.
Yeah. And then you have also Mostert as well.
Yeah. You just end up having Trey Lance, who can also just go with it.
Yep.
And also just run. I think the offense would be obscenely dynamic. I don't know if there's a single better situation to go for as a young quarterback than to go to Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, but I think that if the 49ers get either Trey Lance or Deshaun Watson, they are winning the NFC West. And
I would agree with that. I bought 49ers stock 3 years ago when they had the second pick in the draft, and then they made the Super Bowl. So, I mean,
one thing also is just the Cardinals are going to be a tough spot to go up against, because they're looking better and better, and Kyler is getting better and better. And I think Kyler is probably a top 5 QB this past season.
I would say it's closer to top 10, but I get where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, his record didn't show for it, and there was a lot of issues that they had going on, and it also helped that he had the best receiver in the NFL on his team. But it definitely, those two teams are really going to be fun to watch in that division.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm genuinely obsessed with the NFC West.
Yeah, I'm going to try and go to a San Francisco Cardinals game this upcoming season. Yeah, assuming we can go to games.
Absolutely. I'm going to be at a Giants game to boo Daniel Jones. No, I'm probably not.
Or to root on Deshaun Watson.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. If the Giants get Deshaun Watson, I you know what? Fuck it. I'll host a giveaway on this channel. I will host a giveaway for a Deshaun Watson Giants jersey.
I'll enter that.
There you go. I'm that in on, getting a top 5 quarterback on the Giants. But Sam, before I get into the Chargers, I want to warn you before you start thinking about your pick with the Vikings that if you go offensive tackle, you're going to get yelled at by someone named Anonymous. Or even if you go offense like Elijah Verrett Tucker and go with a hybrid lineman, you're going to get yelled at. So I want to let you know that Anonymous on YouTube wants you to go edge rusher real bad. All right.
Keep that in mind.
All right. I am going to keep the Chargers pick the same, though. I don't think Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle is super necessary for a team that already has Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Yeah, Keenan Allen. I don't think either of those are necessary. I do like Joseph Osai as an option across from Joey Bosa, especially with how old Melvin Ingram is. I think last time I either did Osai or Gregory Rousseau here. No. You had this pick. You went Cosme.
Yeah, I went Cosme.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm going to put you in a bit of a bad situation. I'm going to take Osai. The Chargers brought in a defensive coordinator as their new head coach. So if you bring in a defensive coordinator as your new head coach, you're going to build the defense. And I don't know. The Chargers managed to have a decent offense despite the fact that their offensive line was struggling all year. Hunter Henry, who knows if he'll be back because he was on a franchise tag this past year. Who knows what happens there? But I think edge is super valuable. If you bring in a defensive coordinator as your new head coach, you're gonna focus on the defense. And this is a team that has a ton of talent on the defensive end. Derwin James is going to be back. I remember his name this time. You just have a lot of talent up and down. Of course, Joey Bosa. He is incredible. He performed even better this year without having his real complement in Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram was hurt most of the year, which is why they need to replace him with someone like Osai. I do like Azeez Ojulari more. I really do, but I think that doesn't mean Osai is a worse player. Excuse me. He's pretty damn good, and he's also relatively young. That's the most impressive part. He has long ass arms. He has a ton of ability to just push. It's the best way for me to say that. He moved around. He moved between outside linebacker and defensive end a lot this past season at Texas. And this, the COVID sit outs and all of that, this boosted his stock so much. Who knows if he'll be able to actually do all the stuff that he showed at Texas. But I think this is a guy with a bright future ahead of him, and being able to be the second edge presence and not having to take on that number one edge role is going to be damn good for his development. And the Chargers got a real good one there.
Yeah. You have put me in a bit of a tough spot here with the Vikings.
Especially because Anonymous is going to yell at you, so be prepared for that.
I mean, I was going to actually take Asai if you didn't take him, which I'm sure you probably expected I was going to do. Yeah. But, basically what I'm going to say here is fuck Anonymous, and I'm taking Cosme.
There you go. The best pass protector in this class, some might say.
Yeah, I mean, he's a beast. He's strong. Two Texas boys back to back, basically, and they are both very, very talented players. And I think I could see either one. I could see them switching off those positions there.
Yep.
And I would say that at this past season at Texas, they were the two best players on their team.
Absolutely. Sam Ehlinger looked bad.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12 is not a great conference as a whole, but
it has one SEC. That's one good.
Big 12. Yeah, I mean, it's not a good team, a good conference, and the Big 12. Texas was not all that impressive.
Yeah,
as a whole, but they are definitely those two players, man. Texas went from one of the best recruiting schools in history to being but they definitely recruited right with Cosme.
These are the best set of players coming out of Texas since Earl Thomas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. It's
the Longhorns have been bad.
Oh yeah.
Like real bad for the past however many years you want to call it.
I mean, pretty much since the game against USC. That's pretty much how long they've been bad.
Yep. Yeah, and I love the Cosme pick. I mean, I've talked about how this team needs to replace pieces that are going to leave on the offensive line, and how important it is to keep your offensive line good when you have invested so heavily into Kirk Cousins, when you have invested so heavily into Dalvin Cook, and when you have invested so heavily into Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. I
Yeah,
think
and
looking at Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle would be interesting here. If we know they're going to move off like Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Anthony Harris, all of those guys, all those vets. We know that we're going to move off of them. I'm interested to see if they might also move off Thielen. Like, I know Thielen is Mr. Viking, Mr. Minnesota, all of that, but I think
yeah, I mean, this is he can have that. He has an out. He has a player option to get out this season, so he might go somewhere else as well, Thielen, but especially because Jefferson is sort
so
of
damn
evolving
good.
into the wide receiver one
Yep.
there, and they are very different receivers, but I think they're. If I were to bet, I think Thielen's going to be playing on a different team next year. But so they could definitely go for that if that happens. But I mean, I also don't know if they would trust having two young receivers.
Yeah. Especially with Kirk Cousins. Like, if you have young quarterbacks and young receivers, it makes sense. Like, they build together, they grow on the same timeline. If you have an older receiver, an older quarterback and younger receivers, you kind of get into the situation, especially with a quarterback like, Kirk Cousins, who I think he is one of the more underrated players in the league. You really don't want to go all in on trying to get a Super Bowl window, which is what you're saying if you draft two receivers in the first round.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the Vikings are such a weird place in terms of the draft because they're not high enough to replace Kirk Cousins, nor that they would after this investment. But they're also at a weird spot where they could end up with all the edge rushers gone, or, maybe Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah makes a little bit of sense as a linebacker to, solidify the middle of that defense. But they're in such a weird place because they simultaneously need so much on the defense that it's kind of a sunk, like, you're just kind of screwed there anyway, even if you get real defensive pieces. Daniel Hunter is coming back. It was it a shoulder injury? I can't remember. I can't remember if I called it a shoulder injury and it was neck injury, or if I called it a neck injury and it was a shoulder injury or something like that. Or was it a herniated disc? I think it was a herniated disc. Either way, that defense is so far away that it may just be better to go all in on offense and let that defense struggle.
Yeah. And they also, they want to also keep that offense good to keep Dalvin Cook incentivized to stay around, because Dalvin Cook is a beast and they're going to want him there as long as he wants to be there.
Yep.
And I mean, it's possible that he's going to want to leave. It wouldn't surprise me if he tried to go somewhere else, soon, but that getting a better offensive line is definitely going to help improve their chances of keeping him.
Yeah, I agree. Sam, can you hear that in the background or no?
Ever so slightly. Not when you're talking.
All right. Then we're good. Before I get into the Patriots pick, I just want to see if I know for a fact who the last Heisman winner drafted by the Patriots was, because if it is who I think it is, it's Jim Plunkett. Well, there's a certain player in the 1984 NFL draft who we have a whole video detailing the story of on this channel. It's real interesting. Took a whole lot of work to look into it. In 1984, the Patriots took wide receiver Irvin Fryer first overall, who was a Heisman candidate. There you go. Take a look at that. Again, real good. Put a lot of effort into it. But I guess you know who I'm talking about now, because I said they're going with a Heisman winner. It's Devontae Smith. His tumble ends here. And I mean, people are going to talk about how insane it is that the Patriots get Devontae Smith. But what I think people don't realize is that wide receivers aren't often drafted in the top 10. And last year we heard about oh, there's no way Jerry Jeudy or CD Lamb fall to where they eventually did. And that's the biggest thing. CD Lamb and Jerry Jeudy fell. And neither of them are really the level of prospect of Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. But simultaneously, like, we don't see, there's no team in the top 10 where their biggest need, like biggest need is a receiver. Penei Sewell maybe, like, not Penei Sewell. Dolphins maybe, but probably not.
Yeah.
Eagles, I think it's linebacker. And even then we went with someone who is, going to be playing a receiving role. The Panthers don't need a receiver. The Lions, if they re-sign Kenny Galladay, like I think they will, probably don't need a receiver that bad. We had the Giants taking one. The 49ers would much rather go with their future franchise quarterback. The Chargers don't need one. The Vikings don't need one. The Patriots do. That's how I'm going about this. And Devontae Smith is going to fit with the Patriots damn well. Him and N'Keal Harry are like polar opposites, and maybe N'Keal Harry can, flourish in that wide receiver 2 role. But yeah, whoever's going to be the quarterback in New England needs some actual weapons to succeed. And Devontae Smith is step one into making that happen.
Yeah.
I think they would probably prefer Kyle Pitts, if I'm being honest, just because how much their offense relies on tight ends. But Josh McDaniels might be gone for the Eagles head coaching job. And look, we all know Devontae Smith is a real good player. What's on trial here is not Devontae Smith being a real good player. What's on trial here is how much do you value wide receiver in the first round at this point? And the answer to that for me is it's like my third priority for most of these teams. And none of it didn't fall into place for any of them. Like maybe you can argue with the Kyle Pitts pick for the Eagles. Maybe. Outside of that, there's really no team that would have gone with wide receiver here, in my opinion. And I don't know how much people want to argue with that, but yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, here's my question, Sam. Who do you think is the starting quarterback of the Patriots next year? Do you think it's more likely they draft one or they trade for a veteran one?
That's a good question. I don't think it's going to be either of the two guys that are currently there.
You're not a Stidham believer? You're not a Stidham stan?
Not right now. Give me a couple weeks to work on that one. Maybe I'll change my mind. But no, it's tough because that's just a weird situation. They had for a while they were the most desirable team to go to if you're an offensive threat, and now they are among the least most desirable teams. Just Cam Newton is not a threat to an offense to a defense right now. I mean,
passing wise, he's not.
Yeah, passing wise, he's not, and it's just Stidham is even less so. One. So I think that Belichick is probably going to try and draft one, but in the later rounds,
is most likely there. I saw someone say Mac Jones at 15 makes sense.
That's way too high for Mac Jones. I mean, it's. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but that's way too high than he deserves to be picked. But it might be Kyle Trask in the second round.
That would make some sense.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think that Belichick is going to waste his first round pick on a quarterback. Since they made the risk 20 years ago on a quarterback in the 6th round, and holy shit, did it pay off?
Yeah.
So I think that Belichick knows what he's doing. He's an incredibly smart coach. So it's definitely something that he will be able to sort of figure out and exactly know what's going to happen. He's a great scouting coach as well. So he has a great scouting team.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, he just does not draft in the first round. Last year, he could have had Kenneth Murray, who, an inside linebacker on this team would have helped a lot. He not only that, he could have also had Patrick Queen. Like, Kenneth Murray was taken with that pick, but he also could have Patrick Queen, who's going to finish in 3rd in Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, people talk about the value of the fifth year option on rookies so much, but I think before anyone else, Bill Belichick realized that the fifth year option doesn't matter anymore if teams are just going to have to rip up these contracts to pay the players anyway.
Yeah.
So it's much better to get them for cheaper earlier than, anything else.
Yep.
So this pick could certainly be on the move. It's also super unpatriot to take a wide receiver in the first round. Like, that's just not how he thinks. He'd probably be way happier with like a Christian Darrisaw or something.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, is Edelman still going to be there next year?
Oh, I have no clue. I would say Edelman is on watch to retire.
That would not surprise me. I mean, he was injured for most of the past season, wasn't he?
Yep.
Just
Yep, he
checking
barely
his
played.
contract real quick.
And then
He's-
I believe Damian Bird or Jacoby Myers or not Jacoby Myers. Is it Jacoby Myers? It might be. Were the two top
Yeah.
receivers for the Patriots, which is, they're good. And then, N'Keal Harry were the three options. And, they're
James White as well.
James White as a running back.
Yep.
There was also, what's his name? Oh, number 37, I think. Harris? Damian Harris, is that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, he was out of Georgia, I think. He also looked real good as, like, not a pass catcher, but as a pure runner, he looked real good at parts of the season. So, I mean, this is the same issue the Giants have, where it's a ton of players that are good at what they do, but not good enough to like command any real respect. So you're just stuck with a lot of you have a crowded receiver room with players that aren't that great.
Yeah.
And that's what the Patriots have right now. And adding Devontae Smith would really just change that whole dynamic.
Yeah, I just checked here. Edelman has 1 year left in his contract, but he has a player option to get out of it. And he doesn't have any more guaranteed money on it. But
Oh, if he doesn't have any guaranteed money, he's not playing.
yeah,
Especially with how old and injury prone he is, he's not playing.
yeah. I mean, let me check out what he actually is just to confirm that. Yeah, he's 34. Man, he's 34. He's sustained pretty much one injury the past 3 seasons at least.
Yeah.
And
He just keeps getting hurt over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when the Brady to Edelman connection was golden.
He won a
But-
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now he's just a non-factor
Sam,
on that
you
team.
can,
And
you can say it. You can say it. It's not rude to say it. He's washed.
yeah, he's washed.
There we go.
Definitely.
All right. Sam, take over the Cardinals. I think, all right. Why don't you lay out their offensive weapons real quick and what's built around Kyler Murray?
Well, the number one is obviously Hopkins.
Yep.
As we've said multiple times today, I think we both agree he's the best receiver in the sport.
Yep.
People argue Julio, but especially this past season, Hop was a lot better than Julio.
And Julio barely played.
Yeah.
There's-
Hop is the one receiver in the NFL that if I was gonna like pick on a team, it would be him.
I would probably pick Devontae Adams, but
Yeah. I mean, he also has the benefit of having
Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers playing one of his best
Yeah.
seasons ever. But
Yep.
he has that. There's Chase Edmonds and Christian Kirk and a few others there, but
Yep.
it's an interesting spot here.
Also, like Kenyon Drake. Like,
Yeah,
they have
Kenyon
a lot
Drake.
of speed spread around.
Yeah,
and They have those complementary roles for someone who's super physical like DeAndre Hopkins.
yep. And I mean, they don't need to add another wide receiver. I don't think. Definitely not in the first round.
As much as I would love seeing Jalen Waddle work off of DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh yeah, that'd be a pretty damn deadly 1-2 punch for them. But and I think the two spots they need to improve the most is their defense and then their running game.
Yep.
And so right now, I'm just sort of going between J.C. Horn and Travis Etienne for me right now.
Where did we go Travis Etienne last time?
I can't remember.
Was it Jets? It might have been the Jets at 23.
Maybe I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I'm going Etienne because they drafted a running back last season, but it just didn't work out for them.
Well,
So
they took Benjamin and then barely played him.
yeah, I mean, he played 3 games or something like that. So I am going Etienne. He's I think the running back is the one position that they need to just really make their team, make that offense just legendary, and that would really put up some good contention between them and the 49ers to win
I
the
know
division.
this is going to be rude, but I didn't realize how massive Travis Etienne's forehead was.
It's not rude. It's just an observation. We're scouting.
There you go.
You just got to make sure they get him a big enough helmet.
We're scouting forehead length.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no secret here. Etienne is a beast.
Yep.
He's really, really damn good. He's part of the reason why they've won a championship 2 years ago, and or 3 years ago, whatever that was. He's a junior, right? Oh no, he's a senior. So he's got he's got great experience. You and I both aren't huge fans of Dabo, but I think Dabo
is just incredibly uncreative, and he
plays the same offense every single
by getting
year.
Prospects.
Yeah, he's a great recruiter, but not a great coach. I mean, well, okay, I wouldn't say not a great coach. He's a good coach. He's not, Saban or Meyer or really anybody of the last 10 years.
He's not Lincoln Riley.
Right. There's a lot that he needs to improve on as a coach, but we're not talking about. They're not drafting Dabo Swinney here. They're drafting one of the players that he was able to recruit, and that is Travis Etienne. And he's fast. He's strong, can catch it too. He's great for checkdowns if necessary, and I think that would definitely just help out. They obviously have the run threat of Kyler Murray already.
Yep.
So that would be the one thing that I think would maybe keep them from drafting a running back in the first round. But if they have Etienne come in and he proves that he's RB1, I think that offense is going to be scary.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would have taken Jalen Waddle just because he's this far down, and I mean, he just takes the Christian Kirk role day one of being a deep threat. I don't know. I mean, I also probably would have taken Christian Darrisaw over Travis Etienne just because this offensive line does need a lot more help.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of Travis Etienne is a really good player. He really is. He is. Look, I go back and forth by the day between Travis Etienne and Najee Harris in terms of who's the better player. I don't know how to feel about this. I'm probably not on the same board I'm not on board with this, is what I can say. I do think I would go Darrisaw or Waddle over Etienne here, especially for the Cardinals. I mean, I get that they need defensive help, but they also need offensive line help. And in terms of just pure best player available, it's Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not fully on board with this one, but I'm also not going to call you an idiot for making it.
Well, you can still call me an idiot. I don't mind.
All right, you're an idiot.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, I got the Raiders. I got the silver and black. The first year they don't have a second first-round pick in a long time. I mean, how much would it make Al Davis happy from the grave if I went Jalen Waddle? How happy would that make him?
Ecstatic.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know, man. I'm not going Waddle. They have devoted far too much into wide receiver to take another speed threat. Yeah, I mean, there's enough weapons here in terms of Darren Waller, Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, who they just took top 10, or at 11. I can't really remember.
I think it was
Josh
11.
Jacobs. There's good talent up and down this roster.
Good young talent, especially.
Yeah, especially as at the skill position.
12th. He was picked 12th. Ruggs was.
Yeah, there you go. And even the offensive line, on paper, they struggled with injury pretty heavily this year, but on paper is still really good. They have Rodney Hudson, Richie Incognito, Trent Brown. I think they're still trying to move off Gabe Jackson, but like Colton Miller, John Simpson, there are really good players on this team, especially on the offensive line. And I would not be shocked at all to see them stick with the same offensive line, especially after their run game performed despite those injuries. All of that. So I'm not going Darisaw. Even though it would make some financial sense here, I'm not going Darisaw. I'm thinking about Jeremiah Owusu-Karamo as a pure coverage linebacker in the middle of this defense. And I'm not really thinking about JC Horn. I know it's a need, but they just took, it wasn't Damon Arnett. Who was it? It wasn't Arnett. Who was it? Oh my, was it Arnett? Raiders CB. Oh, it's just going to give me, oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh my God. It was Damon Arnett. All right, I was right. There you go. They have Damon Arnett, who they just took in the first round.
Yeah.
It just,
From the Ohio State University, by the
there
way.
you go. It just doesn't really make sense to me to go corner again there. What I will say is that I'm not going Gregory Rousseau. I am thinking about Azeez Ojulari. Just because I think having a super bendy edge opposite of Max Crosby could pay dividends for this team. There's just so many needs on the defensive end. It's between JOK and Azeez Ojulari, and I think I'm going Azeez Ojulari. Again, he's going to be way down here. Jalen Phillips is my top rated edge. I probably would go with Jalen Phillips over Azeez Ojulari in a vacuum, but it just doesn't seem likely for the Raiders to go with a speed rusher. And Ojulari is a suit, like, look, his hip bend and the way he uses his arms is, excuse my French, fucking insane.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, man. And look, Georgia defensive players scare me off a lot of the time because they have such a good defensive scheme. It's why I had, zero interest whatsoever in DeAndre Baker. And there were character things there as well, but he was by all standards the best corner in college football that year.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of falls apart when you get to the NFL. I'm scared of Georgia defensive players really often. That being said, Azeez Ojulari is someone who has been a blast to watch on film. And he has those athletic traits that the Raiders like to draft. He is from one of those blue blood programs that, the Raiders like to draft from. And I think he is a great compliment to Max Crosby. Or maybe Max Crosby is the compliment to him. Either way, I like Azeez Ojulari to the Raiders. There you go.
I agree with you for that pick. That's probably who I would have gone as well.
There you go. Well, you got a Dolphins pick, which
I do.
It's absolute. Can I? Are we on the same page here?
Yes, we are. It's 100% Jalen Waddle. No other option.
Yeah.
They need a wide receiver for one, but also it's just, it's that they have, for one, the Alabama connection. Tua and Waddle didn't play together much, but it's still, they had that connection there, and it's plus, he's a great wide receiver. He's my wide receiver 3. I think he's your wide receiver 2, but he's 100% going to turn that offense around as well. And just, we discussed earlier that they need to improve that pass offense, but
he's an elite separator. He's exactly what Tua needs. Tua needs guys that get open, not guys that will catch balls that aren't open.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is also why I don't go wide receiver that early. Because even if Jalen Waddle weren't here, you can wait. There are other great separators. Kadarius Toney is an insanely good separator. They have him way down here, it seems. but he is an incredible separator. I don't know if you saw this, but he ran a route where he pushed his left foot for outside leverage, then spun back around and had the cornerback falling. All right. You can find great technician receivers later in the draft. You can find receivers as a whole later in the draft. And especially when it works out like this, when you when you get a Jalen Waddle at 18, there is literally no reason to go wide receiver that early, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a clear option here. I'd be kind of surprised if he even lasted that long, just because those three wide receivers are just such great picks. Three of
Yep.
the best receivers in the last few years of the draft.
I
But
mean, for those who are confused about how he fell this far, here's how I'll explain it. Adam Schefter had Justin Fields falling to the Patriots at 15 in his most recent mock draft. Why did that happen? Well, because there was no one ahead of him who would really take a quarterback that high. And there wasn't an ability to make trades, so there was literally no way that anyone could come up and get Justin Fields. In this situation, it's similar. There's literally no way that anyone can trade up for Jalen Waddle. So where do we have him going? Maybe it could have been the Cardinals. Maybe it could have been the Patriots. Maybe it could have been the Raiders. But he's gonna end up going to the Dolphins anyway in this situation, just because there's no one else who would justifiably take him over the options they had in front of them.
And if people are trading up, they're trading up in order to get a quarterback, pretty much. So
yeah. If you're moving up because you really think A, someone's not going to be there when you pick next, and B, because you think they're going to be a difference maker.
Or you need Penei Sewell or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Here we are. I'm going to keep this one short too. Washington going offensive line. I know they need quarterback, but this could be a team that's a dark horse in the Deshaun Watson race, as miserable as that would make me. Because I'm a Giants fan, and seeing Deshaun Watson in my division but not on my team would be heart-wrenching. But for any quarterback they might get, again, we've talked about them being a trade-up option. If they're not, for any quarterback they might get for like a 4th and a 5th round pick, be it a Matt Stafford, be it a Jimmy Garoppolo, you need to protect him. And I forget what the name of they drafted a tackle out of LSU last year in the 5th round to replace Trent Williams, and he has not done that. So I'm going to be taking Christian Darrisaw. I'm taking a tackle. I'm taking offensive line. Look, the defensive line at least is all ready for a Super Bowl run. The rest of the secondary and the linebacking core needs more help, but you got to protect the inside. And I think if I would make a case for Rashad Bateman there. I would make a case for J.C. Horn there. Just as players that, can really help the secondary that's struggling, and Rashad Bateman, who can be an extremely good complement to Terry McLaurin, who I know you love and I'm a big fan of as well. So tackle and offensive line is so hugely important, especially for a team that doesn't have elite quarterback play. And there is no situation in which Washington will have elite quarterback play. So,
yeah, I do agree with this pick. I think that if they don't get a quarterback in either free agency or in a trade, then they will go for a quarterback in 2nd or 3rd round. But just to have it in case they don't like Heineke.
Yep. I mean, you took Mac Jones last time around, right?
I believe so, yeah. And which I do think is incredibly likely that not that they would take him at 19th, but they would take Mac Jones in the 2nd round. But I really, really enjoy watching Washington play. They are a good young team for the most part.
Yep. I don't like watching Washington play, but I have a respect for how they've built things.
Yeah, 2 of my favorite players out of Ohio State are on that team.
Yep.
And they have a lot of offensive threats, except for quarterback, basically. And
I would say they have one offensive threat, and his name is Terry McLaurin.
Logan Thomas did really, really well towards the end of the
Thomas
season.
Finished the year off real well. Yeah.
And they also had, Antonio Gibson as well.
I'm kind of out on Antonio Gibson. I'm not too sure about him. He finished the year well, yes. He's a very good pass catching running back. I'm not sure if he can be an every down back.
Yeah, I do see that. And I think that also might go her running back later in the draft as well,
Yeah.
just to sort of fill out that position. But
Yep.
I think Darisaw is a great pick here, and I think that would improve, their chances of if they don't trade that pick away, it would improve their chances of getting Deshaun Watson or like
Yep.
Matt Stafford. Man, I would love to see Deshaun Watson and Terry McLaurin.
Don't,
That would be
don't,
fantastic.
don't.
I would also really like to see Justin Fields, but there's no way Justin Fields is going 19th.
Don't manifest either of those things, please.
A man can dream. I'm honestly, I'm probably gonna get a Chase Young jersey and a McLaurin jersey at some point, and might as well have to get the trifecta if Watson does go to Washington.
Yeah. If you know what, if they finally choose a team name, that's the day.
Honestly, I want to get a Washington football team jersey,
team,
because like it's in a while they're gonna be pretty, like they're gonna be worth a pretty penny. I don't think I would sell it, but it's still just gonna be a nice collector's item to have. There's no shot they're gonna stay as the Washington football team forever.
That would be hilarious if they
I think they're gonna change it probably before this upcoming season.
Yeah.
My prediction is Washington Warriors for the record, but
I think Washington Red Tails is such a good option, and fits the district of Washington.
Yeah,
it keeps the HTTR for them. So
yeah, definitely. But as we were saying, yes, Darisaw, great pick. I think that's the best option they could have here.
Well, Sam, it's your turn to make a pick for another team that desperately needs a quarterback.
Yep, and also in the Deshaun Watson sort of bubble.
I don't think they are, just because there's no way they trade away, 3 first-round picks for Khalil Mack and then turn around and say, hey, you know what we don't want anymore? First-round picks. Like, I think Deshaun Watson would make that team a Super Bowl contender. And I mean, it also seems like Allen Robinson is going wherever Deshaun Watson goes.
Yeah. And I mean, and this is also an interesting position. I could see them also taking Mac Jones at 20th or in the second round. But I think that they're, of the people that's currently on in the options here, I think Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be the best.
Yes, I saw that pick happening and I agreed with it. Either that or Rashad Bateman if Allen Robinson leaves. But
and that will, again, just like with Darisaw, that it's going to improve their chances of getting a good players coming to their team, just to want to play for that team. It's something that they definitely need to improve on just as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, also, if they don't improve at quarterback, and you're going to be a team that relies on David Montgomery, who, I mean, if anyone's interested, is going to be a damn good pick in fantasy next year.
Absolutely. He was one of the best this past season, towards the end of the season.
Well, I nearly lost in the finals because David Montgomery went insane.
Yeah.
That was worrisome. But either way, like if you can't get a quarterback and your offense is going to rely on David Montgomery, you need to fix the interior of that offensive line, because I'm not even sure if there's a good offensive lineman on the Bears to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, I think that would. So in terms of positional importance, it's obvious that quarterback is more important than offensive line. However, in terms of which need is more desperate, I would say it's offensive line, just because I think the Jacoby Brissett led Chicago Bears could be really good.
Yeah.
If they get an actual offensive line, that's my biggest thing. So.
Yep, 100%.
And speaking of Jacoby Brissett, you like that transition?
That's a great transition. Good segue.
Speaking
Another team that needs a quarterback, by the way.
Brissett, we have the Indianapolis Colts. They put up a damn good fight against the Bills.
They did. Impressive.
Yeah, and they did that with geriatric Phillip Rivers at the helm. I
threw more than 20 yards.
Yeah.
Accurately, that is.
I mean, there you go. The release has always been ugly. It's just even more ugly when they're ending in picks instead of receptions.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, Jonathan Taylor has proven that he's a bell cow running back. I've talked about my love of Jonathan Taylor before on this show. I mean, I did it last week, and I think I took Rashad Bateman last week. Instead, I'm going to take a corner because, there's no secondary on this team. Like Malik Hooker, who's a safety, I know that, isn't going to be back. And he didn't play all year, but even then, that defense has issues. I'm
He's also
not
from
taking
Ohio
Gregory
State.
Rousseau. I'm not taking Gregory Rousseau. That's not happening. I am thinking about Jalen Phillips. I'm thinking about not Carlos Basham as much, but I am a fan of Jason Owe. Yeah, Jalen Phillips is really the only. Well, yeah, Jalen Phillips is the one who I'm thinking about in terms of edge, but I'm going J.C. Horn just because I think the value here is higher.
Yeah.
As a corner, and as a team that on the defensive end, if you put together one great player on each level of your defense, and they have two already, like DeForest Buckner. I know Giants fans were mad that he made All Pro over Leonard Williams. That DeForest Buckner is, in my opinion, very clearly the second best defensive tackle in the NFL. And he played on a team that was far better because of his additions. Darius Leonard is one of the best linebackers, pure linebackers in the NFL. If you can add a J.C. Horn to potentially be that version of that for corners, and then if you add a safety to do that, Julian Blackmon to do that, you're set. Your defense is set. And for a team that has already built an incredible offensive line, it either has to be wide receiver to add, across from Michael Pittman, or it has to be corner or edge. And there's no edge presence that's available here that I would really love. As much as I love Jalen Phillips, I think he needs to be in the right position to succeed, and also has injury issues. That's a big issue with him. But look, I don't know. I love the J.C. Horn pick for the Colts. I'll leave it at that. I want to hear your reaction before I get into it any further.
I mean, I think it's the best pick for them in the first round. I mean, we discussed Jonathan Taylor's probably the best player on that team as a rookie, and he at least has the highest, ceiling on that team, I think. And
I'm just too huge of a fan of Quentin Nelson, who I think is the best guard in the NFL. DeForest Buckner, who I just said was the second best defensive tackle, of course, only behind Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean,
he's certainly the best offensive player on that team. Well, no, he's certainly the best skill player on that team.
Right. Now, I do agree with this pick here. That's what I would have done as well. I would have picked the highest, cornerback available, and J.C. Horn is damn good, and for a not so good team.
Yep.
And as in South Carolina, I mean, not in the Colts are a good team, but they're not great.
Yep.
But I think he could elevate that defense, and that defense is definitely going to help them finally beat the Steelers, for example.
Yep.
Or beat the Bills. Stop Stephon Diggs.
There you go. All right, Sam, who are you taking for the Titans?
This is also an interesting one because they also like the Colts. They have a great running back.
Yep.
And you could say, oh, they need to improve that offensive line, but I mean, Derrick Henry, even though he didn't really show up against the Ravens 2 weeks ago, he doesn't need an offensive line to get through and get some yards.
I think the main reason why he's putting up some crazy ass numbers is because he gets a good 4 yards past the line of scrimmage to just build up speed and bowl through people.
And he also has some of the best yards after contact.
Again, because he gets those 4 yards of runway.
And I mean, but I do think, like with the Colts, the defense is just the one thing that needs to help them out. It's Lamar Jackson walked all over them.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago or a week ago, and so I think that their best option is probably going to be in Gregory Rousseau, just to improve that defensive line and stop the run, which they haven't really been able to do.
Yep.
And there's not really much to say that Vogel is a great coach for defense. It's just that he hasn't had the defense to sort of back that up. And
so I have a really low opinion of Gregory Rousseau. I think I would compare him. I would probably compare him to like Leonard Williams on the Jets. where he's a hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end, and isn't, super productive at either, while showing like he shows reasons why he should be a pure defensive end or shows reason why he should be a pure defensive tackle without showing any of the reasons why he really can be productive there. Like
Right.
he shows signs, but I think he's like the AJ Epinesa of this year. I'm not too high on him. I just think he might be better off moving into the defensive tackle, which is still something that the Titans need. But I probably would have gone with Alex Leatherwood. I know they just took Isaiah Wilson in the first round this past year, but he has extreme character issues, and I think I forget what it was. It was either drinking and driving, or he got in some sort of fight outside of Nashville.
Drunk and disorderly or something like that.
Yeah, something insane. And I would have probably gone Alex Leatherwood, just because I think getting a right tackle on this team, of course they have Taylor Lewan at left tackle, so they don't need that. But getting a real option at right tackle going forward for this team, especially Leatherwood is so, guard, tackle, both of that, but he's an extreme run blocker in the same way that Isaiah Wilson was supposed to be last year. And I kind of would be willing to cut ties with Isaiah Wilson. And if that's the case, I would go with Alex Leatherwood.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from with Rousseau. I just have such a low opinion on him that I wouldn't go there. But
completely fair. And Miami this past season also was not very good. So
yep. Well, I mean, he also sat out this past season.
Yeah.
But for me, he's just like the ultimate tease where he's just disappointing. So there you go. All right, we got the Jets for the second time. I actually like their receiving core. Yeah, I like Denzel Mims and Jamison Crowder together. They also have Rashad Perriman as the speed threat. I think that's a good combination of players. Like, I don't think there's that much to be unhappy about there. They obviously have their left tackle of the future in Mekhi Becton. We've talked about all of this. Here's what it comes down to for me. Do I value getting Rashad Bateman, who I think is an incredible player, for the Jets, who I don't think really need a wide receiver, but could take one? Do I take Najee Harris, who would make Zach Wilson's life a lot easier and would be a monster behind Mekhi Becton? Or do I go, with an offensive lineman? Do I go with Liam Eichenberg, with an Alex Leatherwood? I wouldn't go Jalen Mayfield here. I don't think it makes sense here. Or lastly, do I just go pure best player available and go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah? Like, CJ Mosley should be coming back for the Jets, so inside linebacker is not the biggest need, but I'm still intrigued by it. And I think at the end of the day, I am going to go JOK. Just because I think if they move to a 4-3, and CJ Mosley does show signs of age, I think Koramoah can immediately step in. I think for a team that is as weak at cornerback as they are, that, being able to force everything to the sideline and just say, hey, look, the middle of the field is going to be covered all the time, makes sense defensively. And I trust Robert Saleh to get the most out of Koramoah. That's just how I'm looking at it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Najee Harris makes sense here just yet, but
especially
with
a defensive coordinator coming in as head coach now. I definitely agree with you here. I mean, I think this is who I would have taken as well. I honestly would not be surprised if we were spot on with that pick. I
mean, even then, CJ Mosley has an opt-out coming up very soon, and he is aging pretty heavily. Like, he hasn't played football in a year, and we saw how that just worked out. That worked out for, when the Jets signed Le'Veon Bell after he hadn't played a year. Yep. And I just think when you take a full year off, you get a full year older. In a contact sport as heavy as football is, CJ Mosley might be on the downturn, and I would love to take a player like Owusu-Koramoah, who's just going to lock down the middle of the field for me.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now, Sam, I think the biggest question for the Steelers is, Do you go offensive line or do you go running back? Of course, the Steelers were last in the league in terms of, estimated yards per rush attempt and yards per rush. I think they were below 4 yards per carry. They just were physically incapable of running the ball. And at the end of the day, their whole offense just fell apart because they had no balance and because they asked, Ben Roethlisberger to throw however
Yeah.
many times it was. It was like 67 or something. It was absurd.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a tough pick here going against division rival for the Browns, but
Yeah, look, I had to do that
one,
last time. Now you have to do that for your
yep,
team, um, along with a rival. And well, you didn't have to do Bengals. I did Bengals.
yeah, but Corvette, Browns won. Um, I am gonna go with a tackle here just because there's a decent chance that Pouncey is gonna retire, I
Yep.
think, and
Who's the center, but at the same time, like
yeah,
you
that
can
offensive line just
move
they
the
need that.
Castro in. Yeah.
Yep, they just need to build that up, and I think we discussed this. I think Leatherwood is the best offensive tackle that we have here, and I'm gonna go with Leatherwood for the Steelers just because it's
There
who
you
they
go.
need to improve that team, and they definitely need to improve the run offense.
Yeah.
But
Look, I like Javonte Williams a lot. I
yeah,
know you love Trey Sermon, and we also got Chuba Hubbard, later in the draft, who's going to be good. So I think finding a running back, as good as Najee Harris is, I think finding a running back is not too difficult. So
yeah, definitely.
finding a tackle is hard as hell.
Oh yeah, and obviously the combine might, or the
A lack of
whatever
confidence.
combine that we're having this
Yeah.
year, the workouts and stuff might affect sort of how teams view these guys. Depends on how Leatherwood
Yep.
and Mayfield and other offensive tackles do.
Yeah.
But I think that their best option right now, especially if they want to get a quarterback to come in, and people are saying, "Oh, get Watson to Pittsburgh," which I would
Let's be
absolutely
dead
hate.
honest. Yeah.
But
Let's just talk about how the Steelers do not have a chance at Deshaun Watson.
yeah, I mean, especially cap space wise, I mean,
Yeah. Well, I
he's not
mean,
going to cost a huge amount of cap space, but it's
you can
still,
always manufacture cap. Also,
yeah.
Deshaun Watson has a $5 million cap hit for next year.
Plus, I mean, it seems like they're going to try and get JJ Watt as well.
Yeah.
So that's
Having all the Watts in Pittsburgh would be a fun storyline.
definitely, and I mean, TJ and JJ are both
Yeah.
absolute monsters, but right now, I think just the offensive tackle is just necessary for them to improve that team, and if they want to get another quarterback to come in, unless they trust Mason Rudolph for whatever reason.
Or if Ben sticks around for a year, you still got to protect him.
Yeah,
Either way.
absolutely. I mean, especially because last season he was out for most of the season because he got injured, and it's just it's a tough tough spot for them. And I don't like the Steelers at all.
Yeah.
But as I said, I just think
they're really under ransom by Big Ben because they can't piss him off and draft a quarterback here. If he's a franchise legend of theirs, and they can't do that. They can't say, "Oh, sorry, man, we got this guy." But if he does retire, it's going to be probably after the draft or just before, at which point there's just going to be pandemonium. I don't know. Either way, I think tackle, like, I thought Jameis Winston to the Steelers made a ton of sense in last year's offseason. I didn't believe in Big Ben at all. I thought, look, you have what was a 37-year-old, I think, or a 38-year-old going through Tommy John surgery. Something bad's going to happen. And something bad did happen. He lost his ability to go deep. He also, I mean, he just lost the velocity on his throws. And you can't run a good offense if you can only go underneath and you can't run the ball. So I think the first step to being able to add diversity to this offense is, you get a tackle so that you can run the ball. And I think Alex Leatherwood is one of the best run blockers in this class. I mean, we talked about Sam Cosmi being an incredible pass blocker. By that same logic, Alex Leatherwood is an incredible run blocker. So I like that pick a lot. I mean, the Steelers, I think their biggest need is on the offensive line.
Absolutely.
If it's not on the offensive line, getting another edge presence, if Bud Dupree is going to be on another team, or if he doesn't come back like real well. He was really, he broke out last year, but he was continuing that pace this year. I'd also look into a corner. I've talked about how much I like Asante Samuel, especially over Eric Stokes. And, let me just say this with utmost certainty, 10,000% over Sean Wade.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't say much there. I can't change much there either, but there you go. Yeah, I really do like the Alex Leatherwood pick. 25. We back at it with the Jags again. We brought up Urban Meyer before. Is this the spot to take an Ohio State player? Probably not. There's not really any Ohio State players really that are great and available.
There's Wyatt Davis.
Yeah, there is Wyatt Davis. Well, let's start out with positions of need. You got to protect Trevor Lawrence, so you do need a tackle, and it does look like I would take Eichenberg here. Does look like that's going to be available. Do you want to go with the absolute weapon in Najee Harris? Do you want to go with someone like Rashad Bateman, who is going to work well alongside DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, James Robinson? I think James Robinson and Najee Harris could be a great combination. But I'm not going to do that either way. I don't think, look, the linebacker core, or at least the inside linebackers, are set with Miles Jack and Joe Schobert. So, yeah, I am going to go Liam Eichenberg. Tackle prospect I really like out of Notre Dame. Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame has somehow managed to, at least put out one high-level player in every draft for the past couple years. And I think Eichenberg is going to be that player. I'm not necessarily sure he's going to be a day one starter, but I think he's starting by at least week 8 next season if the Jags do end up drafting him. I know you would have preferred Jalen Mayfield. I just personally prefer Eichenberg to Mayfield.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. My boys,
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns, who should have won the game 2 days ago against the Chiefs, but helmet-to-helmet contact plays are not reviewable. They also have the stupidest rule in the NFL history. It's a
dumbass rule, but also you got to respect Chad Henne and Andy Reid for calling what may be the gutsiest play call of the last 20 years or something.
Yep, definitely. Now there's definitely the defense is the big thing with the Browns. They need to improve on their secondary defense is mediocre. Do
you want me to bring up Andrew Sendejo again?
Sendejo the Pendejo is
he's bad.
Yeah, he is no bueno, and they have Denzel Ward, who is off and on, but he's still a great corner.
I think he's a CB2. I don't think I can trust him as a CB1 anymore.
But I honestly don't think that they need any growth on the offense. Their offense was obviously the best part of the game this past season.
Yeah.
Maybe an additional wide receiver if Odell goes somewhere else. But even without Odell for most of the season, they made it to the playoffs. They won their first playoff game since 1995 or 6, I think. And
it's been a long time. We can say that.
Oh yeah, it has been a very long time. But I do think that their best option is going to be improving that defensive line. I think that they have one of the best offensive lines in the league, if not the best offensive line in the league. So, Mayfield's great, but no, not necessary. Now, do me a favor and switch the edge position, please?
Oh, are we? Please tell me you're going to do the same pick I did last time, because I think that was my favorite pick of the draft last time around.
Yeah, man, I was going to take Owusu Karamoa if he wasn't there.
Yep.
But, you obviously took him for the Jets, which I think is, a great pick. And so I'm going to go Jalen Phillips.
Yep, we're keeping this pick the same, and it's still a pick I love.
it makes sense, man. I mean, Myles Garrett needs help, especially he's had some difficulty recovering from COVID.
Yep.
And, if he has the offseason to sort of rehab a bit, I'm sure that he's going to be back in form going forward. But,
Yeah.
getting that help on that defensive line, man, our rush defense and pass defense is just, they're both bad. But, I mean, we were able to stifle some of the pass defense on Sunday against the Chiefs. But, and I mean, granted, the best passer in the NFL was out for
Yeah.
the last quarter and a half, but
Yep.
it's, it's just, we couldn't stop Le'Veon Bell. We couldn't stop freaking Le'Veon Bell on his runs. And so to get improving that defensive
Well, it
lineman, that's
wasn't.
going
It
to be
wasn't
so
Le'Veon
important.
Bell. It was Daryl Williams.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. They were just both eating us alive.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't help when you have, Kelsey there also blocking and catching like a
Yeah.
monster. But the defensive line as a whole is just a huge spot that they need to improve, especially going up against the Ravens twice a year. I mean, they have Lamar Jackson there. That's, he runs all over almost every single defensive line that he plays.
Yep.
J.K. Dobbins going into his second year. He's now going to be the RB1 with Mark Ingram being released. And I think Dobbins is going to have a great year next season. But it's the most important thing for this team is just improving that line. And last week I said the most important thing was the secondary defense, but watching them run on us
apart slowly.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I still think the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. Bills I think might also be up there, and obviously it's Bills, Packers, and Chiefs are top 3 easily.
Yeah.
But and I think we did a hell of a good job against the defending champions. But it's that defense that it just so many empty gaps.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love the Browns defensive line. I love Myles Garrett. I mean, I what he did to Mason Rudolph was kind of fucked. Like, I know all the rumors that Mason Rudolph was saying stuff and they've buried the hatchet, but he still could have actually killed him. I love
that much.
I love Larry Ogunjobi. The beast from Charlotte. He's damn good. He's also just a fun guy. Olivier Vernon has been one of the most low-key productive players in the NFL. Sadly, he's a free agent, and I'm pretty sure some team with a lot of money is going to say, hey, we need pass rush. It might be the Jags. We need pass rush. Let's bring in a guy that was productive as an edge for his whole career, and pay him a little bit more than we should. So I think he's going to be away from the Browns, unless he does want to end up ring chasing, in which case this pick might be very different. But I love Jalen Phillips. He had one of the best rookie years ever. Had a really struggled as a sophomore, and then just had one of the best years as a redshirt junior in all of college football. He was genuinely incredible. He's a speed rusher, lots of tools, lots of athleticism, and I think he's a perfect complement for Myles Garrett, especially when Myles Garrett moves inside, which he's shown the ability to do on certain positions. And seeing Jalen Phillips duck under stunts from Myles Garrett, like behind Myles Garrett, would be a nightmare to guard, a nightmare to have an offensive line go against. And I just think it creates such a dominant defensive line that, I made this pick last time. I explained why I loved it last time. Nothing has changed about my love for it. So there you go. All right, we got the Ravens, another in-division foe. Sam, I want to ask you what you think the Ravens' biggest needs are from watching them throughout the course of the season, or when you went against them.
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't seen a huge amount of Ravens games this season. I think the only few that I've seen was the one against the Bills, and I didn't watch the game against the Titans. And then I watched parts of the Monday Night Football against the Browns a couple of weeks back. And so, their offense, their running offense is with Lamar Jackson running. It's next level. I mean, they're going to be the next 5 years. They're going to continue just having some of the best running plays each season.
Yep.
And but I think that they either need to improve their receiving core um or their defensive line. And I think
That's,
they also need to improve the offensive line as well, just
yeah,
because to protect Lamar and Dobbins and pretty much everybody on there. But
yeah,
Lamar left with an injury on Monday Night Football. Many people say he did just go poop, which I kind of think he did. But um, they need to. He's a skinny guy.
yeah,
He's fragile. I'm scared to see what happens if somebody tackles him at the knees. And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we saw having a Burrow when he got hit at the knees. And Burrow's skinny too, but he's not as skinny as Lamar. Lamar, it's going to snap in two if something like what happened to Burrow happens to him. So I think that, man, either improving their receiver core, and Lamar is a great passer. He does not get enough credit for how good of a passer he
yeah.
is. He threw his first interception in the red zone this season on Sunday.
It ended up being a 101 yard
Yeah,
pick six. So
yeah. I mean, it's not that did not look good for him, obviously, but
yeah,
receivers very important. But linemen on either side of the ball, I think that's going to be key.
yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is this may be a bit of a hot take. I think Lamar Jackson is currently in one of the worst positions to be in as a starting quarterback. He has been given his offensive line is crumbling. His defense can't stop a warm breeze. And look, he's expected to pass his way through games at this point with an offensive scheme that isn't adapting during a game.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge issue. Additionally, his best receiving weapon or weapons are a receiver who shows up for maybe one game at a time, then disappears for 5, and is clearly, very clearly not a wide receiver one, and an old ass Des Bryant. I don't want to hear that Willie Snead is a good receiver. He's not. Like, I don't want to hear that he gets open. He gets schemed open, and then because he's a vet, knows where to sit down. There is no good receiving threat on this team.
Yeah, Mark Andrews.
They have Mark Andrews disappears for like ages, and having Mark Andrews as your number one option as an offensive team, it's not boding well.
Yeah,
like it really doesn't look good. He's a red zone threat offensively, and then he can catch a few balls after releasing and blocks. But by no means should he be your number one offensive option. I have said before that, like last time, I think I said this pick should be Wyatt Davis. Wait, why am I doing? Huh? I think I. Oh, wait, I remember why I did this pick last time. I did Jalen Phillips and the Ravens, and you did Steeler. Well, or whatever it was at that point.
yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I went Wyatt Davis last time on this, but I think I am going to switch it up a little bit. I do think Wyatt Davis would help this team a lot, but we saw how they just got completely rocked by the Bills because they had no one who got open. That was a defensive battle. It really was. And then the Ravens could just not figure out how to get anyone open.
I mean, a defensive battle that ended up having Lamar Jackson leave with a concussion. So
yeah. And props to Bills Mafia for paying to his charity. That was a nice touch. But Hollywood Brown was just not getting open and was not catching the ball. He's had drop issues this whole time, and he may just be best used as a field stretcher, as a deep threat that can keep the defense honest, keep the safeties honest. And in that space, I want to take who is probably my favorite wide receiver in the class, although I don't think he's the best. I love Rashad Bateman.
uh-huh.
I really do. He made Tanner Morgan look serviceable.
Yeah.
That says enough. He's super physical, really good at breaking off the line, good developed route runner, incredible yards after the catch threat, which I think would be awesome for this Ravens team. Having someone who can actually catch the ball and go. I think that's the biggest issue with Mark Andrews is he doesn't really go anywhere after the catch. While Hollywood Brown should do that, he doesn't. I do think Wyatt Davis has a spot here. And if you want to go with I think the Ravens are great at offseason trades where they get a lot for a little. We saw the Calais Campbell trade for a 5th round last year, stuff like that. The Yannick Ngakoue trade for a 3rd round this year, stuff like that. We saw how that worked out for them and how they're willing to do those moves. But I think Julio Jones for like a 3rd and a 5th makes sense because Julio is on a bad contract at this point and has been injury prone. But even then, I love Rashad Bateman. I think you've given Lamar, you haven't given Lamar a real offensive weapon, and it's been happening for far too long. And so I'm going Rashad Bateman, who I love as a receiver, and I'm figuring it out from there. So that's
100% agree with the pick. I mean, that's what I would have gone for if not going for a lineman. So absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Great
look,
pick there.
they got Orlando Brown and Ronnie Stanley coming back, or Ronnie
Yep.
Stanley coming back. That should solidify their tackle group. And those were huge losses for the offense. Like, even before that, they couldn't really run the ball well, but that was with Mark Ingram. I think things could change a little bit. And you do need to replace Marshall Yanda. I mean, look, if you want to hear about the pick with if it were to be Wyatt Davis and why I would like that as well, go back to last week's video. I'll link it in the end card. Until then, like, I'm just going with Rashad Bateman because I really do like him as a true number 1 receiver. And I think he can be that for a Ravens team that really does need that.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. The Saints, who have lost their Hall of Fame quarterback, who went out real sad. Like,
Very,
real
very
sad.
sad.
3 picks against the Bucs. Looked awful. The offense for the Saints could just not figure out how to do anything. And they got blown out. Like, that game was sad.
Yeah, I mean, I really like watching Drew play. Drew is fun to watch. I really like the Saints as a team. They have a lot of Ohio State players on their team, so that's nice. But they are a fun team to watch. But since they won the Super Bowl, they've not, done super well. You could say, oh, they should have made it a couple years back against the Rams, but
Yep.
I'm with you on that. They should have made it. That was a completely missed call there, but
they've just they have some legitimate excuses and some non-legitimate excuses, but when you keep going back to those excuses, people just stop seeing the legitimacy in any of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's reason to say, oh, they should draft a quarterback, and I don't think that Sean Payton is going to draft a quarterback.
Is it crazy that I believe in Jameis Winston as the future QB?
I'm kind of with you on that. My one issue is just his terrible season last year at the Bucs.
He threw 30 touchdowns though. He threw 30.
Yeah, I mean he was like, for every step he took one step forward and one step back every single play though. So it's just like, I don't know and he also said that he got like LASIK eye surgery, so he's obviously going to be able to see defenses better now. And he has done well. I mean, I think he should have had the starting job over Taysom Hill when Drew was out after he hurt his ribs.
Yep, absolutely agree.
And Taysom Hill, I think, is mediocre at best. And I mean, I also just
want to do the whole Lamar Jackson thing, but the difference is that Taysom Hill is just not a good passer.
Yeah,
and Lamar Jackson is. And Lamar Jackson, his rookie year, wasn't, and then developed into.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar also just has smarts in terms of football.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill he's a by the book system quarterback, basically. He just gets told what to do, and that's it. He doesn't have any play calling capability that Drew has, for example.
Yep. And I also think a huge thing is that Taysom passes as a gimmick. Lamar Jackson can actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, and for whatever reason, Sean Payton is just in love with Taysom Hill, and it's stupid. Yeah, I was thinking last year. I mean, I think they should have drafted a QB last year, and
I love Jordan Love to the Saints last year.
Yeah, and
have that all the time.
Sit under Drew for a year, and then come in and with a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks the last 10 years. Last of the century, basically.
Yeah, last 20 years.
Just on as a mentor, and then Breeze is gonna go on to be he's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer probably, and hell, he might even get a coaching job at some point. But for right now, I think that one of the two quarterbacks is going to start next season that they currently have.
Yeah.
We both agree it should be Jameis. I don't think it will be Jameis. But I think right now the next thing that they need to improve is that defensive line, and that is through Zaven Collins.
That's not necessarily defensive line, but I get where you're going.
Well,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, it's
Front seven.
exactly. It's the defense is one thing that they need to just improve as a whole. They have a decent secondary defense, but a lot of them are old.
Yeah.
And a bit washed, I want to say. Who was?
Well, I mean, they just traded for Quan Alexander. Like Demario Davis is a bit older. They have Anzalone. So I wouldn't have gone linebacker, but I mean, you look up and down who's left. Like, it probably does make sense to go linebacker just off pure value. I mean,
like I was thinking, like Malcolm Jenkins doesn't have a lot of time left in him,
yeah.
And Marshall Lattimore, I think if he doesn't go anywhere, he's going to be there for a long time. I think he really likes being at the Saints.
Yeah, I would have probably taken Asante Samuel.
I was considering Asante Samuel for that. It's just it's hard to sort of just to balance exactly what they would need, and their pass defense. They were the best defense in the country this past season for the most part.
Yep.
And yet there's still always room for improvement for one, of course. But there's no shot that they draft a QB in round one. There's no shot that they draft a skill position in round one.
Yep.
And I think it's either going to be Asante Samuel or Zaven Collins for their pick. And those are just the two positions that they need to improve the most. And those are the two best players that we have left in those positions, I think.
I would think about Terrence Marshall just because it's kind of looking like the Saints might trade Michael Thomas. And having, keeping the LSU guy in New Orleans is always something we like to see.
Well, he's in Baton Rouge, but
yeah. So there you go. I am gonna, keep this quick for the Bucs. I'm going Jalen Mayfield.
Yeah.
The Bucs offensive line still has serious issues. Tristan Wirfs might be an All-Pro. I don't know if he was an All-Pro his first year. He was playing at that level. But look, every time I talk about Ali Marpet, and there were so many miscues with the offensive line during that playoff game that nearly lost them a good chance of winning it. Like, this game wasn't particularly close, but they kept getting in their own way on the offensive line in a way that would have been bad for if they were playing a real team that wasn't, imploding. But I'm not the biggest Jalen Mayfield fan. I still think he's going to develop into being a starter. And the Bucs just took a high upside, play with Tristan Wirfs at 13 overall. And they just took a player like that and they, sculpted him into being an All-Pro right tackle over the course of a season. Maybe they can do the same thing with Jalen Mayfield on the left side. Either way, there's nothing on the board that's going to help them more. Yeah, that's my thought process. You feel free to respond, or if you just want to hop into the Bills pick, do so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's the best position there, and their running game is kind of weird right now. Arians doesn't like Fournette, and he sort of likes Rojo, but
Rojo is the better back, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But yeah, so I agree. I think that's the best chance, especially when it comes to projecting, 85-year-old Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Bills.
You mentioned his name about 5 minutes ago. Asante Samuel.
Asante Samuel. I'm glad you went Asante Samuel and not Eric Stokes. I'm glad I've started.
I agree with you on this. Like, Stokes is just, he's not bad, but Samuel is underrated for his position.
Yeah.
And, it's the team that they need. It's a player position that they need the most. Their defense is up and down.
Yep.
And, they have a lot of weapons on offense. Singletary's a bit hit or miss. But, he's young. He has a lot of time to grow. And there's also possibility of drafting a running back later on in the draft as well. And
Yep.
Josh Allen is the third best quarterback in the NFL this past season. And, um, Diggs is top 5 receiver in the NFL this past season. We have Cole
Yeah.
Beasley,
Yep.
a lot of other players. I mean, their offense is deadly.
Yeah.
It's just
Don't forget about Mitch Morse at center.
yeah,
One of
I
the
mean-
more underrated players on that offense.
yeah. Their secondary defense is just the big thing that was keeping them back. I mean, they had Lamar Jackson, and the only good play that I would say that they had in the secondary this past weekend was the pick six,
Yeah.
and that was a lot of that was because of great blocking and a really lucky opening on the return
Yeah.
from end zone to end zone.
Look,
So
no one was scoring in that game.
yeah, I mean, it was a defensive bout, but I think mostly just because of the defensive, the front seven basically on both teams.
Yep. Yep, absolutely agree on that front. So I love Matt Milano. He is absolutely huge for the Bills defense. It's why I'm picking the Bills over the Chiefs this week. Just because, he transforms their rushing defense and does so much to help them cover tight ends.
Yeah.
So I like it, and he is a free agent, but I assume they're going to pay him. It's why I'm not going with why I wouldn't go with someone like Nick Bolton or something like
Mhm.
that. So I do like the Asante Samuel pick. For me, it was either Asante Samuel or Najee Harris, just because I think adding a different element to that running game would be so important when they really were not able to run the ball well this season. I know it's Colin Cowherd's favorite stat. Like their running game depends on Josh Allen. It's why he's the MVP. And while I wouldn't go that far, like it really does depend on Josh Allen. So getting him a little help with a runner that does get himself open all the time, I would be interested in that. But I do like the Asante Samuel pick.
All right. On to the
The Packers.
Packers.
I mean, no one is going to like this, but I'm not going with an offensive difference maker, something like that. I'm just not doing it. The Packers show an unwillingness to go with a real offensive playmaker. That being said, if they were to do that, I mean, look, Aaron Jones is a free agent after this year, and they just took AJ Dillon, but Najee Harris might be an option there. I mean, I love Terrence Marshall. We've talked about how much I love Terrence Marshall. I just don't think he fits with Devontae Adams that well.
Yeah.
So, and also, I think Alan Lazard or Equinemius St. Brown, or maybe even both of them, are free agents after this year, so they need to figure out something there. But it seems like veteran players are going to want to play with Aaron Rodgers on a Super Bowl quest. I also think Juju Smith-Schuster could be an option for this team in free agency, and I think Juju fits this team pretty well. So, all that being said, I am going to go with who I think is the best defensive player available, and I'm going Christian Barmore. He absolutely destroyed the title game. Like he would have been I would have considered him as MVP for that game if it weren't for Devontae Smith and Mac Jones going crazy. Like he was clearly third for me there, but I just think, look, you have the Smith brothers, and of course they are there to build up the defensive side of the ball, but you can easily swap to a 4-3 and just have disruption on the inside and hope that you can figure something out with like Christian Kirksey and stuff like that. Because look, Jair Alexander, in my opinion, is the best corner in all of football.
Uh-huh.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
But there's just real issues with trying to figure out how this team is going to build its defense, because its defense is straight up bad. Like the Packers do not have a good defense. And I think it's more important to build a defense that can actually maintain the leads that Aaron Rodgers builds than to go all in on an offense where Aaron Rodgers already has his favorite targets in Devontae Adams and Robert Tonyan, and a good offensive line there. And even if they keep Aaron Jones, you have that as well. I just think it makes more sense to go on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, take us home.
This is actually an interesting position to be in.
Yep.
Because, I mean, uh, like it's there's a lot of different options here to go for. Um,
I
I
went
want to say,
Terrence Marshall last time.
yeah, and that's what I'm leaning towards. But I mean, like, Najee Harris is still there, and obviously, Allaire is a good player, and I think he's going to continue to improve. He didn't have a phenomenal season. The start of the season was, put him in offensive rookie of the year
Well,
talk
he had
at the
one
start of the
good
season.
game to start off the year, and then since then was just like,
Yeah, I mean, he's been decent. He's gotten what's done. He gotten what's necessary done for them on the offense, but he's not the reason why they might go to the Super Bowl in a week or 2 weeks.
Yep.
It's a really interesting situation because I mean, like we said last week, you know, Watkins is probably not going to be there going forward. Hill is obviously going to be there. Kelsey's obviously going to be there, so they still have their two best, you know, receiving threats available, and I don't like Kadarius Toney personally. I think that he's sort of just the product of not necessarily the product of the system, but the product of Kyle Trask. Um,
I love his route running ability, but it's hard to justify taking another small receiver.
yeah, I mean they already have arguably the best small receiver in the league, so this is actually an interesting spot here because like I would also be considering Olave if he didn't announce that he was returning for his senior year.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think that's such a stupid move for his career, but I know you're real happy about it as an Ohio State fan.
yeah, I mean I think part of the reason why he did it is because he knows that there's going to be like the Packers are going to have a high first round pick next season most likely,
Yep.
and several other teams are as well. So he wants to improve his draft stock this season and then go to a Super Bowl contender. Now, for that
Well, I mean,
reason,
it's clear that the highest he could be rated as a wide receiver in this draft is four,
yeah,
and then next
and
year it could be higher.
definitely. But after all that discussion, I'm gonna replace Patrick Mafraud with Kyle Trask. No, I'm not. I'm gonna do the same thing you did last year, Terrence Marshall. Terrence
Yeah,
Marshall
I
is
mean,
just
I refuse to even bring up the menu
yeah.
for
I mean, it's he's great for one, you know, and good for LSU having two wide receivers drafted in the first round by us.
yep,
But I think he could really easily fit into that offense, assuming Watkins does leave. He'd be a great wide receiver too, not counting
yep,
Kelsey, of course. And Kelsey is pretty much the wide receiver one on that team at
yep.
times, but um, that's what they need to just continue improving. And I said last week, I think that if they draft right and I mean, they definitely need to improve some of their defense as well. But if they draft right, they could. I said last week as well.
You think they
I
can
think
be a dynasty? Just
yeah,
say it.
I think they can be a dynasty. I think they might three-peat. If they win
Yeah,
this year, I think they're going to three-peat. First time that there's been a three-peat in the Super Bowl era where all three
yeah,
championships were in the Super Bowl era because I think
yeah,
the first time when the Packers won the first Super Bowl, that was the that was a third win of a three-peat.
yep,
Technically, the first two, those were the NFL championships, not
yep.
the Super Bowl. So I think that they could have a successful three-peat and really create that dynasty. I mean, I think my prediction is by the end of his career, Mahomes is going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He's the best quarterback in football right now. It's
Yep.
pretty much undisputable of that. He's unparalleled in terms of his, ability to read a defense, basically trick a defense, throw on the move on his off foot, twist around. I mean, it's insane that he
To
went
sum
10.
it up, Patrick Mahomes is real damn good.
Yeah, and I hope for the Chiefs that he gets to back and is able to play on Sunday. It's if he does, I think that they are going to beat the Bills. But I mean, I don't know, man. That game is just going to be so fun to watch. in
Oh, it
general.
really is.
Just
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
it's going to be. I mean that game might be the better than the Super Bowl, honestly. Obviously, if we get like the State Farm Bowl where Mahomes versus Rodgers, that's going to be also just amazing to watch. But
Yep.
and I hope we get that because that's just the storyline and just how fun that is.
Yeah.
But also, I really like the storyline of Rodgers versus Allen. But that's
Yeah.
obviously not what we're discussing here.
There you go. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching. Sam, do you have a message to say goodbye or whatever?
Goodbye or whatever.
There
Love
you
your
go.
neighbor.
Love your neighbor. We're back to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume we're probably not going to do another mock draft next week just because these take a lot of work, a lot of time, and we have jobs to get to and jobs to do. But we will be back eventually before the draft. I promise that much to do another mock. If I'm promising too much on your end, Sam, let me know.
Not at all.
Then yeah, we'll be back at some point with another mock. Maybe if we get enough support on one of them, we'll end up doing 2 rounds, but we're clearly not going to put the same level of detail into those because god damn,
That'd be
these take
5
a long
hours
time.
long.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back again sometime soon. In the meantime, follow us here, Insta, wherever. All the information is in the description. And yeah, stay safe, wear a mask, and we will see you all next time.